Welcome, everybody, to Crunch Time with Jeff, Booner, Lucas, and Mike. It's
There we go, boys.
February 28th.
Let's go.
And we got a packed show planned for you guys. If you're listening via YouTube or Facebook, subscribe, like. It helps us support the boys, supports the network or the channel. See, I caught myself there. On top of that, if you're listening, any podcast platform, leave a 5-star review because, again, that helps us as well. We're going to have Scott Bischoff on today, former scout. He's going to help us break down the NFL Combine, break down some prospects, so that'll be exciting. We're also going to talk about Brad Holmes. He had a comment yesterday, or was it today? It was mentioning corners.
Yeah. Yesterday. That was yesterday's press conference.
Which we missed, which we're going to revisit today. Dan Campbell talked about JMO yesterday. We'll revisit that as well. And then, of course, we're going to get into some prospects. You see the thumbnail on the video, the one Darius Robinson. Seems to be a Lions, a guy that the Lions have on their radar. They met with him, and he's from Michigan. So I can't wait. But before we get into anything, boys, how we feeling tonight?
Beautiful. I'm ready for the show, boys. I've been waiting all day for this.
I was feeling great. I don't really get how the weather can go from 70 degrees to 20 in the matter of 24 hours. It was absolutely terrible out here in my side garage right now. I'm freezing. I wouldn't rather be anywhere but the boys, talking from 8 to 10 p.m. weeknights, baby.
Absolutely. Obviously wasn't here yesterday. Was watching the Wings, but another huge dub for the boys. Another big game tomorrow, and we have a great show planned for you guys. So happy to be back.
Hey, Gentry, while you were gone, we did talk a little Wings. In the midst of it, and as the Wings were scoring all those goals, I got roped into putting on a bet for them to win the East plus 4,000, as well for them to win the Stanley Cup at plus 7,000. So I'm all in on this run. I'm ready to roll.
I love it. I mean, the East is, it's pretty good. They got a lot of good teams, but you never know with the Stanley Cup. When a team's hot and they get in there, they can make a run. So
and they're hot, all right, baby. Let's go, man.
Dude, I mean,
how about those Red Wings?
Yeah, tell us about it.
No, it's just insane. Like the third period, the offense was really fully clicking from all angles. And like I said yesterday or 2 days ago, it's really been the secondary scoring. It hasn't just been the first line. Obviously, yesterday you had Dylan Larkin, DeBrincat, and then Kane with 2 points. But it's really just been the whole line. And a lot of the Capitals players were speaking on it yesterday. I know Tom Wilson, he said it's just a scary team, just how deep they are. And you've seen the offensive explosion they had. So it was an insane night. Obviously, they have another big game against the Islanders, who are chasing them tomorrow. So they got to keep it up. But it's been an unreal streak for sure.
They're back.
Yeah,
baby.
It's a first 6-game winning streak under Yzerman, which is hey. Buy that Red Wing stock. Booner actually literally bought stock. Like he didn't just say it. He put his wallet on.
I'm all in. Well. I'll win a lot of money if they win either one.
And a 6-game win streak doesn't, come by too easily in, hockey. So like to say that, obviously it's great and all, but like to finally get over that hump. But 6-game win streaks are not easy by any means. Like every game means a lot in the NHL. So to crack one of those off it's pretty good.
It's good. Hey, you know what, too? It's good to see someone doing something at LCA as well. Just throw that out there. Sorry, that wasn't a shot at the Pistons, but it's good.
It was a shot at the Pistons. But didn't the Pistons win yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was no, they did. They did win yesterday. They did.
They did?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking of
they're tied for the worst record now.
The Knicks.
Yeah, I mean,
that was brutal too.
The boys are going through it, but I mean, Cade's been balling, so that's something to be happy about.
Yeah.
No one had anything.
Hey, I will say this, Mike. Simone Fontecchio, or we'll call him Simone Fettuccini.
Fettuccini.
Yeah. Hey, that's a future. He's a part of the future. He's a nice little player. I saw something trending too. Mike Muscala is getting cut. It's just I don't even want to.
Did you see who his agent is too? By the way, it's like Arm Tellum's son. It's like, what are we doing here? And what is happening? Like this is it's crazy.
I don't want to deep dive too much into Pistons. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot of Lions, but what is up with that? Considering James Wiseman is starting in front of him, or playing in front of him rather, and then what's up with Stu being immediately inserted into the starting lineup? I would have kept Fettuccini in there, but I just want to hear your thoughts on that, Jeff.
Well, it's
like Jeff
you know
hasn't
what?
watched the Pistons the way.
No,
he just
I've peeped
threw
them.
this,
I've
man.
peeped them. I've tried to keep up. I haven't tuned in live because it actually frustrates me. But
yeah.
I did check out the
fair.
highlight from yesterday's game. Obviously, we missed it because we were doing the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? You could spend an hour going through what's frustrating. Monty Williams, I appreciate his passion at the podium after the Knicks game because that was back-to-back games where it was blown calls, which it is frustrating. You're not going to get those calls because you stink. But his rotations are frustrating, man. Like it absolutely is. But I could spend probably another good 15 minutes breaking down the rotations. Oh God, it's a headache. I'll tell you that. You know, it's not a headache though. Getting to appreciate the people that do join right when the stream starts. Like Shift God, he was here first. Freddie Fell 313, ETN, Dark Flame. We got Charlie Adams, of course. Eduardo, as always, my guy. We got Adam Baydoun. That's a lie. That comment is not true.
Whoa!
I deny those rumors.
Jesus.
Hey,
Anakin Skyogre. We got Peter Van Larhoven. I think I said that correctly. And then we got Bonjay as well. But yeah, like I said, we got a good show for you guys planned. We're gonna go through some of the prospects, like guys that we like, guys that I think
that is true. Yeah, I tried to go to I tried to go get the fellas to sell the Detroit Pistons, and they arrested me. I went and protested outside of LCA.
Yeah, yeah.
Booner, funny.
What?
On the back of my notes, I had "sell the team." This is from when you were doing your show, and I was going to walk by the window with this back when we were at the old company. So I just thought that was funny. It's fitting.
Yeah, no, that's some issue due.
The man to not be named should probably sell the team.
But yeah, well, you know what? Speaking of a team that we don't want to be sold is the Detroit Lions. And Brad Holmes, kind of pivoting this back to Brad Holmes, he spoke about the outside corner position and just corner in general. Kindle Vildor, his rights were not retained.
Oh,
it's breaking news. Kindle Vildor will not be back with the Detroit Lions, which kind of signals what they want to do in free agency and in the draft, which I think shouldn't be news to anybody. Here's a video of him speaking more on just the cornerback position and why Brad Holmes is obsessed. And I did appreciate this. Obsessed with scouting corners. Here it is.
I guess, if he was, he was an outside corner, but again, that's, you're talking about a late third round pick, so really, that would have been the highest that we've gone. That's not been intentional. Again, like you all know, everybody knows that I've talked to. We're all just going to pick the best players. Obviously, you can't have enough corners. It's a very hard position to play. It requires so much, not only physical qualities, but intangible qualities to be successful at that position. And you might have to be a little more selective in acquiring them. And when you find a good one, they're hard to find. They're not growing on trees, although that's arguably them in wide receivers, probably the most voluminous group, position group in a draft. But that'll mean that they're all going to be good. So and especially as high as you might have to pick them, especially because of their physical qualities. If you get wooed by the physical qualities too much, but they don't have the intangible qualities, you get yourself in trouble. So I hope I'm answering your question, clearly, but it is kind of, I don't want to call myself a snob of, outside corners, but, I have a lot of appreciation for that position. I was a cornerback cross check for like over a decade back with the Rams. And, I love corner play. I just love it. I could watch DB individuals all day, every day. I think it's poetry in motion. I love DB play. But yeah, we just want to get the right fit.
Well, I think what he said, it's funny because we've mentioned that he's perfect on safeties, drafting safeties. Mm-hmm. And there's your answer. He's a DB savant. And I think it was interesting what he said there about corners, how there's a lot of volume, but it doesn't mean they're all going to be great. You have to be wowed by the physical tools, the physical qualities. And that's why a guy like a Sauce Gardner goes top 5, or that's why a guy like Derek Stingley goes top 5. That's why Jeff Akuta. No, I'm just kidding. But other guys. Just in general.
Wow.
No, but just in general, guys go, especially with those type of intangibles. it's funny. I mean, the Lions need a corner bad, and you got the guy who is a savant. So Lions are in good hands. I'm curious if this kind of foreshadows anything, meaning like, not that it should, because Brad never shows his hand, but just at 29, if a corner is actually more in play than we think. I mean, every position's on the table, but we'll see who's there at corner. I think it could get interesting.
I don't know about you guys. It does make me feel more so like he's not really worried about even getting a corner in the trap, like in the first 2 rounds. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of what I took out of it, just because he's like, hey, just because there's a lot of guys and it's a deep corner draft, like every draft has a lot of corners, doesn't mean they're all really good. And I think that's how I took those comments was, hey, yeah, there might be a lot of guys that all of us and our show and different shows are breaking down, and we have 5, 6, 7 guys that we're like, oh, these are dudes, like they should take him. And it's like he's probably like, hey, these guys, they really might not be dudes. And to me, he's obviously, he knows what he's doing at the corner position. That's why it's kind of weird that they haven't figured it out yet. But I don't know, that those comments make me feel like that's going to get addressed in free agency. Like that's just where I go with it. Someone that like he's able to take a look at, and he's like, I already know this guy has what it takes. He knows what to do. And I think it might be guys that we're not even thinking about right now. In my opinion, like, he knows what he's doing. He might take one in the 2nd or 3rd round. After those comments, it makes me feel like it's out of play at 29, because best player available, we talk about like positional value and stuff, and typically like all these DNs, like it's a deep defensive line class, in my opinion. Like there's going to be so many defensive linemen that are available to me that are going to be better overall than some of these corners that are available at that position. So that's why I'm like, if he stays at 29 or moves up or back, I think corner's out of play now from what he just said there. That's
unless
where I'm at with that.
Unless there's a corner that wows him, right? Like
yes,
he thinks,
yes,
this is the best player. That's what I meant by that.
Which if he does go corner, then that means he's got a dude, because he wowed him, and he's obviously a savant when it comes to that position. So if he does take a corner at 29, that gives me a kind of a little sense of like, okay, Brad knows what he's doing. Like I do trust him, especially after that whole conversation and those comments there.
Yeah.
No, I'm kind of leaning with Booner. I think he's more going to address it in free agency. Obviously, kind of spoke that there's a lot of depth in the draft as far as cornerback goes. So he might look to add one of those guys later on in the rounds. That's the way I think he's going to do it. But it's kind of just good to hear that he's ready to attack and kind of zero in on the defensive back position. And he realized how crucial that was, kind of a part of the Lions' downfall, really defensively. So that's just good to hear. And obviously, he said he's a quarterback savant. I've seen a few people talk in the chat and saying, then how do we have some of the worst defensive backs in the league if you call yourself a cornerback savant? So, I mean, hopefully he makes that rights that wrong rather. But it's just good to hear that he's ready to address that. And I do think, like Booner said, he goes through free agency to kind of get that guy.
No, and I agree with what you guys are saying completely, into what Brad's point is, and why I think we haven't seen him really use that savant term yet. You can say with Brian Branch and Iffy, but because look at this draft. There's not a Devin Witherspoon. There's not a Christian Gonzalez. This draft may be high volume with cornerbacks, but there's not like a lockdown, unanimous number 1 corner in this draft. So Brad sitting at 29, there's nobody for him to fall in love with at 29. And I don't think he's going to move up, especially when you even hear him say, yeah, there's a lot of guy with intangibles that can do it, but put it all together, that's a whole different type of story. Because you look at the Nate Wiggins, he's a long, rangy safety. He has ball skills, but if you really look at his game completely, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So for him to take a 1st-round pick, I don't think that's the move. I think he's going to find a guy in free agency, to all your guys' point, that fits exactly what he wants right now. And then in the 3rd, 4th round, that's where he's like, okay, now let's go get a guy with intangibles that we can build and mold. But you don't want to do that on a 1st-round pick, especially at a cornerback position, which is an absolute need right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he double dips. I think that's. I think he double dips. Yeah. I think when people, I don't think he said. Did he say DB savant? I think that's what he said.
He said out, like he was talking about an outside corner, so more corner. Okay. Yeah.
And to be honest, he hasn't really. I mean, name the corners he's drafted.
I mean, literally, like he said, Ifeanyi Fanwu, who was an outside corner in the draft, and then they transitioned him to a safety. Yeah, and that's the only one, which worked out, but he didn't work out at the position.
I think they were just speaking on them as a whole being terrible, not like
they are correct.
And with that too, like if he's saying he's a savant and he feels like that's one of his better, like just because he's great at that, like, it doesn't mean he is bringing in great players like that. Like, he obviously, the first 2 or 3 years, it's been obvious what his kind of mindset was, like, built from the trenches out. And that's what he did on the offensive side. And then defense, he's been trying. You saw he's been trying to do it, and he, missed. Those are some of his misses were defensive line. So, like, I just don't think it's been a priority. And now that you see it is a priority, like, now it's like, okay, it's a priority. I do trust him to get it done, because at other position groups he's hit. And I think now that he knows it's more of a priority, that's why I do think he goes free agency, just because he has a better idea of what guys are and what they're about. And unless there's a guy, like I said, there's 1 or 2 guys that he falls in love with completely in this draft, and they do fall to him, or he's able to make a move to trade up in the second or something to get him.
Yeah, and I want to say this too, for at least the L'Jarius Sneed stuff. Like, there is no chance that's happening. I don't see it. I mean, if you're going to get L'Jarius Sneed, you're going to have to trade for him, trade assets, and extend him. Like, I don't know. I don't think, if I'm Kansas City, I'm tagging him. I'm going to trade him. And I don't think the Lions are going to be buyers there. So I don't think Sneed's a realistic option. I think we discussed corners before, and we'll probably do it again at some point closer to free agency. Like, ideal guys. I know Kendall Fuller was mocked from ESPN. You weren't a huge fan of that one, Lucas. Yeah. I mean, I think at least for a guy like that, maybe a flyer makes sense. You bring in a veteran corner, and like you said, you draft a corner, maybe develop them. Because, I mean, even Trent McDuffie, for speaking of the Chiefs, staying on the Chiefs, he was a late round pick, or at least he was picked at 21 in the first round. But, like, we kind of already discussed that. Like, it's not a common thing where guys in the 20s at corner are super productive. It's usually either top of the draft, or you're talking second, third, fourth round, where guys are coming out that are really, really good. So I'm curious. Like, that's why when we do these mock drafts, we draft corners in the second, third round. Like, I think that's probably what Brad will do. But if a guy falls, who knows? I mean, these mock drafts, man, they're not the Bible.
And
we've learned that really quick with Brad Holmes too.
Yes.
The only corner that I really think Holmes has really been like rumored to fall in love with was last year with Witherspoon, and he didn't fall to him. And right after Witherspoon went, he traded back and got Jameer. So I don't think anybody's complaining about it. But the only real DB that's ever been tied to Brad Holmes has been Devon Witherspoon. It's because he can cover and he can hit, and he showed it on full display in his first year. So I think that's the only guy where if Brad were to take a corner, that would have been the guy.
Hey, and too, with the L'Jarius Sneed stuff too, and the argument that I see a lot of people who want to go after him, it's they start bringing up examples like last year, like go look at like some of the games last year, like he would have locked a couple of those receivers down. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like Jerry Jacobs, Kendall Vildor, like some of these guys, you just need to upgrade that a little bit, in my opinion. Like, you just went to the NFC Championship game with those guys. If you do go get an average veteran to bring in, and then maybe draft someone, and if he has a good feeling about someone in the second or third, and he brings a guy in, that already to me is an upgrade to what you had across from Cam Sutton. So, like, to me, it's like that's what you need to do. Like, I would love to go get a big time guy. Is it worth your 29th overall pick and spending $25 million? No, like, to me, dude, it's not. Like, you can go get you can address the D line, you can go get a vet corner, you can go add other pieces. Like, if you just go at this corner, spend 25 million, 30 million, whatever it is, and give up a pick, is that worth it? Like, to me, no. It's just, you just need to upgrade these positions somehow, some way, to kind of take that step forward. And that's all. And Brad said it yesterday. Like, we're trying to get better. We're not trying to, like, put ourselves in crutches. Like, we want to keep getting better. I just don't see, like, going and spending a ton of money on one guy is going to help. Like, obviously it's going to help because he's a great player, but overall,
I have an answer for you. Like, we look at Brad Holmes, we think of him as a draft savant. Like, take away the DB thing he said. Like, as an overall draft savant, right? Like, you want to give this guy as much ammunition as possible. And people bring up L'Jarius Sneed. Yeah, like, in Madden or any other option, like, you just go acquire guys. I don't think Brad's going to do that. And to even make my point more realistic, L'Jarius Sneed was a 4th round pick. Like, let's not forget that, guys. Like, he was, what did he play? Louisiana State or Louisiana Tech. Yeah. So, like, and again, I'm not saying those guys just grow on trees, but what I am saying is Brett Veach is great in the draft. He's always been. And Kansas City, how they're operated is they do it very smart. I think Brad operates in a similar way. I think from Brad's point of view, why give up everything in the kitchen sink to go get a L'Jarius Sneed when he's shown the ability to find late round studs? You not saying you'll draft L'Jarius Sneed this year, but who's to say you won't? Who's to say you won't draft a corner one late in the draft? Who can become a corner one, number one corner? Like that's my take on it. Like L'Jarius wasn't a top 5 pick. He was picked in the 4th round, guys.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I mean, you even brought up Trent McDuffie. There's a lot of corners who succeed with Steve Spagnuolo. There's a lot of safeties who succeed with Steve Spagnuolo. So I'm not saying that L'Jarius Sneed is not a good corner. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but he was in a very good situation where that was probably the best you're going to see out of him in his career, and that's not a knock. He can still go on to have great seasons, but he was the number 1 corner on a Super Bowl winning team of the best secondary in the league. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that. So if you want to go out there and pay that money, that's fine. But I don't think he's going to be able to look like he did, especially without Trent McDuffie on the other side, Mike Edwards, etc. Yeah. There's a lot of things that he's not going to have in a new situation if he wants a lot of money, and that'll show over time.
By the way, too, with L'Jarius Sneed, too, I saw someone in the comment section mention and bring up, you won't have to give up 29. You can just do your 2nd round pick. Well, real quick, the 2nd round pick, I believe, is 61, which is basically a 3rd round pick. And if you think, like, in my opinion, and shout out, my cousin actually tweeted me when I put this L'Jarius Sneed stuff out and said, I don't know if the Chiefs, and he's a Chiefs fan, he's from Kansas City, and he said, I don't know if the Chiefs would be basically willing to take just a 3rd round pick and to move on from him. Like, there's going to be other teams that are offering him second round picks that are in a way better spot than the Detroit Lions sitting at 61. So it's like, hey, if I think Brad's going to avoid doing this, and we know that he's not going to go this route. Say he did, he's going to have to offer 29. Like, he's not going to be able to go up and say, hey, I'll give you 61 for it. Like, teams, like, what do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be better offers and better, like, and I know L'Jarius is probably going to be able to pick some different spots, but they still are going to want a decent offer for him. So you're probably going to, like, if it's a true thing and if you're all bought in on going after L'Jarius Sneed, you're going to have to probably give up 29.
Yeah.
And I don't think Brad's going to even think about it.
At the end of the day, I don't think we're even going to get him. Like, obviously it's a pipe dream, but like giving up assets and then getting that big contract when there's other needs that you could address, I would rather just go sign a big dog on the defensive line than go out and give up assets and trade for a corner when you can just sign a lower end corner, not like a lower end, but like a Stephen Gilmore, like Lucas always brings up, like an older vet, or even a guy on a more realistic contract than what you're going to get for Sneed. So,
yeah, and even this comment, which I get the mindset, but then I want to bring it up here. Andrew Jones, he says, we are in a window, though. We need a sure thing, not a chance. And I get what Andrew's saying in terms of proven players, but that's how teams get themselves in trouble.
Yes.
Is when you go for sure things and you spend money. Not saying Brad shouldn't spend money. I'm saying spend significant money, and you get yourself in a difficult situation to get out of, or you get trapped. And I think Brad maintaining flexibility, his ability to identify talent, like, you should be all for, like, save draft capital, right? Like, Brad, go find guys, and he's proven to do that. So I have no reason to believe he won't do that. I just don't know if, and even this, he followed it up here. He says, Andrew Jones says Ramsey sure didn't work out. And again, Ramsey is,
they won a Super Bowl for Ramsey.
And they acquired Ramsey for a Super Bowl run. So that's another thing too, which I get, right? You get a proven corner. I don't think Brad.
Look
think
at what happened to their defense. Quick, Ramsey had to leave. Like, everything fell apart right after they did get their Super Bowl.
They got their Super Bowl. Yes.
At the end of the day, what is Brad Holmes right now? I want to build continual success, and that's what they're doing something. They're not trying to just get one and be done. They're trying to build like an actual franchise. Which personally, I would rather have that. Like, I would rather have win 2 or 3 in the next 6 or 7 years than win one. I would love to win a Super Bowl, but I would love to get multiple.
I would sell my soul for a Super Bowl. I don't even care about
I agree.
It, but I'm not even saying like, oh, it's not worth it. Like, you pinky up. Like, Ramsey worked out for the Rams. Like, so I get that. But that's Jalen Ramsey. Like, I think Ramsey's proven that, hey, if you need help specifically, go get a Jalen Ramsey. Like, I get that. But L'Jarius Sneed would be a little different because you have to extend him long term. You have guys that you want to lock up that need contract extensions, and you're trying to add more to your defense. I just don't know if Brad will see it as the right fit right now. I don't think so.
Dude, I'm just gonna keep going back. Like, I just think there's vets out there, and there's guys who are capable of coming in and actually playing good football. Like, if you need a sure thing, like there are sure things out there that they're not gonna be like stars and young stars that you can keep them around for a while. But there's gonna be vets out there that are sure things that can go help. Gilmore can help you make a Super Bowl run. He's been on really good football teams. Yes, he's a little older. Guess what? He can still play football. Like there are guys out there. Kendall Fuller, he can still play football.
No,
like that's but like that's all right. Who are you taking, Kendall Fuller or Jerry Jacobs? Like that's the thing.
If
like,
we're talking about spending money on Kendall Fuller, I'm gonna go get a Sean Murphy Bunting. There's about 3 other corners that actually can play outside, and Kendall Fuller's a guy who hardly can play man coverage and is a slot guy for the most part. The Lions need an outside wide receiver. I'm just saying that I just reacted to hearing the name Kendall Fuller is what I'm saying. I get what you're saying.
Just like who would you rather have, a Jerry Jacobs or him? Like that's what you're trying to upgrade this position.
I get that.
You're trying to upgrade the position, and if you go that route, you just got better, and you got better for way cheaper than you did for 25 millions and probably your first or second round pick. Like it's way better, and then you could go address other positions.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, shout out to Brown Code. He says, I love you guys, but you're tripping on this one. I don't really think we're tripping. I think we're trying to see it from Brad's perspective. I don't think Brad's going to do it. So if he does,
a lot of people are going to be mad at
Sneed, if he does, Brown Coat, I'll come on the show and I'll say, Brown Coat, you and others who believe that were right. But I don't think I'll be saying that. I just don't. No one has said that L'Jarius Sneed is not great or good. He's very good.
Very good.
He was an All-Pro, I believe, this year. But I just don't think that's from what Brad Holmes has said. You know, I don't believe we'll run one player away. I think they prioritize depth. I just don't think that's a move. I think he'll try to find a L'Jarius Sneed like the Chiefs did, drafting him in the 4th round. They're going to try and do that. Whether you like it or not, it's just what I believe he'll do. So.
Can I run this by the people? All the people who want to just go all in and just go all L'Jarius Sneed and spend all your money on him and your draft picks. What happens if you do that, go all in, and you end up not winning a Super Bowl? Like what happens there? Then you just went all in, and now you don't have that long-term success. And now guess what? You're right back to another. Like maybe the one player is not going to break you, but if that's like your mentality is, hey, let's just keep going all in. We're in a window. Like I get you're going to make a push for one. You just were one game away from going to a Super Bowl. That was so part of the window as well. Like you just almost went there. Like what happens if you go all in and it doesn't work out? You're screwed. And what he's doing now is he's building something to keep you in the NFC Championship game year after year after year. I'd rather have that than just take 1 year at it. And if it doesn't work, then it's like, okay, now we just have this big contract I don't know. That's where I'm at with it.
And I get what people are saying with the L'Jarius Sneed stuff, right? Like you look at corner, they need a true number 1 corner. L'Jarius Sneed's out there. He can be acquired. Like I get that. I went down this road already. I did it last year. I fell for the bait. Go get this guy. Remember Jalen Ramsey? Go get Jalen Ramsey. Like I know we're in a different position now, but I just don't think Brad. He said it. Like he said it. Like it's not like it's what I think. It's what he said. It's what came out. It came directly from the horse's mouth. He said our approach will be the same. This isn't like a hot take. It's literally what he said. And
this
I
is
think
the funniest thing about like all of this going on right now. It's like Brad is just straight up looking all of us in our eyes and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna do." And I'm letting you guys know like the process, what's going to happen. This is the path that I'm taking. I'm on the Booner path. We're going to win Super Bowls. And then there's still like the side where like, no, we want you to go all and go spend a ton of money. And then you just get disappointed because like the last 3 years, it was like last, like I literally, I went back and watched the draft show that we did last year. Go back and watch that. Everyone, as soon as Jalen Carter was available at 6 or whatever it was, everyone, Jalen Carter, Jeff, like even you, like everyone, like you're on air, like here we go, like we got Jalen Carter, like let's go. And then he trades back, and everyone was mad. And then everyone started dropping, and everyone was like Christian Gonzalez at 12, and then he went Jahmyr Gibbs, and everyone's like mad. It's like Brad literally tells us, like I'm not going to do the normal thing, and then people still get mad, and people have these expectations. And I went back and watched it today because I was curious the reactions, and it's funny to go back and watch that and see people. Obviously, you don't know at the time. Now you see the 12 at Jahmyr Gibbs and the trade for the 34 with Sam Laporta. It's just
let's say let's just take Brad's comments. Let's just say Brad didn't say that. What do I think? Like, based on Brad Holmes' resume, finding and acquiring talent through the draft.
Yes.
I'm confident, which is crazy to say as a Lions, as us who cover the Lions, like it's foreign to us, but I'm comfortable taking my chances in the draft.
I agree.
And saving. I mean, look at L'Jarius's contract. He was he was a 4th round pick. He was making pennies to be their number 1 corner. So that's just what I would do. I think Brad he's a savant just in terms of the draft. Like, he just is.
Real quick, I want to shout out someone in the chat. Steve Wilds. I went back and watched the draft party, like I said earlier today. Steve Wilds, I'm gonna throw this out there. He was in the chat last year in the draft party. No, before the trade, and he just kept putting in the chat, trade back, trade back, trade back. Steve Wilds was right on the dot. He kept saying before that anyone even talked about it. Everyone was going Jalen Carter, and he's in the chat saying, trade back, Brad. Like, trade back now. So I remember that. I wanted to shout him out. He's in our show every night. So if you're here, Steve, shout out.
I want to make this clear too before we welcome in Scott, because he is waiting, and we're going to get to all this with Scott too. I've said it, and I still believe it. You can't win a Super Bowl just by drafting, but that's not what I'm saying. We're talking about L'Jarius Sneed. I think Brad has to acquire talent through free agency. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just don't think a L'Jarius Sneed for what he would be asking for, plus trading assets, I just don't know if that's something that Brad would do. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I would be down with that. But enough of this. We have a good friend joining the platform. It's Scott Bischoff. Again, a man who is a draft savant. Speaking of a cornerback savant, he's a draft savant, and he joins the program here. Legend. Scott, welcome to the show. We got the Combine coming up. How you feeling?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're great. We're fired up.
Great.
We'll be down there actually Friday. We'll be checking some stuff out. So hopefully we can watch some of the guys out there. And I want to ask you, Scott, to kind of get this started here. Who's a player you think could benefit the most from this NFL Combine? Somebody that, has the most to gain, in your opinion?
It feels lazy talking about like a top 10 player. To answer that, Rome Odunze, I think, has, the 2 players who were supposed to be in front of him are not working out in Indy, right? So, he could cement himself as the number 2 receiver at worst. And I think, you're going to hear some stuff about Marvin Harrison, and he's not an elite athlete like some of these other guys are, but like Odunze ran, I want to say he ran at 10.6500 meters in high school at 215 pounds. Jeez. So to put that into perspective, Jalen Waddle ran at 10.68. Chris Olave ran 10.82. Jameson Williams ran 10.54. So you're talking about Odunze being 215 pounds, but as fast as these other guys are, with the ability to run routes the way he runs routes and win with the ball in the air and the physicality and the run after catch and all that stuff. Is it unreasonable to think that he could position himself to be a top 6 or 7 player in this draft? No, I think that's pretty reasonable to think that could happen. Everybody already knows his game. So I think he stands, he's a player who could rise. Roman Wilson is another one. Yeah. Roman Wilson's history is really unique. Even as a high school player, he had to fly a lot. He was almost operating like a professional, even in high school, and obviously at Michigan he was. But I think I would expect him to test crazy this week. I'm really fascinated and kind of fired up to see what he runs. We know he's fast, right? The 40 is going to be good, but it's the other stuff too. It's the agilities, the 3-cone, the short shuttle, the change of direction, all that stuff, and the ability to run all the routes. So I think there is a conversation that people are having about who is wide receiver 4 in this class. And there's a bunch of players who you could maybe put in there. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he might be one of those names being talked about who could sneak his way into the back of round 1. I know that's probably a little early, but he's an interesting player. There's a bunch of guys. I think that it's going to be an interesting event. Let's put it that way.
I'm excited to see that. I saw Odunze too get mocked to the Chicago Bears a couple. That scares me being in the NFC North.
Rather
but
him than Nate.
Yeah.
So.
That's true. Real quick too, Scott, we were just having the conversation about the cornerback in this draft, and Brad made some comments yesterday in regards to how hard it is to find an actual dude at that corner position, the outside corner. Is there any that like really stand out to you that you think that could kind of stand out in the end of the first round into the second round at like 61 that Brad would like kind of keep his eye on, and it's just an absolute dude? Because there are a lot, and it's been mentioned there's a lot of corners in this draft. Obviously, is there anyone that just stands out to you that you think Brad would actually consider taking?
It's tough. It's tough at 61 because it's like, it's so far down the board. That's a tough question. I think that I know you didn't answer you didn't answer this question, but I'm going to answer it this way.
You're good.
There's a couple players that you could trade up for in the hopes that you're landing a dude without having to give up all of the capital to go acquire a guy like that, like L'Jarius Sneed. I think Quinion Mitchell is a player who you could look at that way. If we just in comparing like last year's draft with Devin Witherspoon, who went 5th, the Lions absolutely wanted him at 6, and that I think that precipitated the trade out more than anything. But when you look at a guy like Witherspoon who didn't test and was small, yes, he's very physical. He could run, he could do all those things, but he didn't test because of I think he was injured, and then he played the combine game of I'm going to get heavy drinking a bunch of water and then just wait to the pro day. And then he didn't run, during his pro day because he had a ham, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff going on. But the point is that the film validated his selection in the top 5. And I think with Mitchell, he's big enough and he's going to test well enough that, if you want to make a bold move, let's say he slips a little bit and he gets to like 15, 16, 17 range. Is that a point where the Lions might make a move to go get a player that they covet, that they like a lot, who fills, an absolute position of need? Because I don't think there's a scenario where a player like that falls to you at 29. And if somebody does fall to you at 29, it's going to be, maybe like Kool-Aid McKinstry or Kalen King will be there from Penn State for sure. I know he was highly thought of, but he didn't have a great year. Ennis Rakestraw from Missouri is there, but he just had the core muscle surgery, and there's some injury history with him that's not great. So, it's almost, it's a really good question. It's almost like if you don't love a corner enough to go get one, it's tough to see one falling to you at 29. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense, actually. That answers that question greatly.
Expanding it out to 61, I don't know what to expect or what will be on the board at 61. I think that they're at that point. There's developmental players who have traits that you like Kamari Lassiter from Georgia fits in there. He may be gone. Chris Abrams-Drain from Missouri probably is there. He's an intriguing player, but he's small. So it's just there's nothing. You're almost if you're looking for a stud at 61, I think you're. I'm not saying Holmes can't do it because he has. It's just that's a tough job. That's tough.
No, and kind of continuing with the cornerback conversation, because I know you brought up some of those day 2 guys that you're thinking of. 2 names that you didn't bring up that I like, but I don't really have the full scope of them. And I'm sure you have a better look at him, is TJ Tampa and Renardo Green out of Florida State. Now I know Renardo Green's undersized, so that's probably why he's fallen to like the day 3, possibly day 2 picks. But what do you think about those 2 guys specifically?
Well, so the undersized guys, to me, the Lions they've got their slot corner position sort of resolved.
Yeah, with
the number of safeties that they have, so it's tough. It's tough to want to really take a liking to some of the undersized guys. The thing that stands out is like Tampa is an Iowa State kid. You want to see them. I mean, the Lions like their guys to press and turn, and turn their back on the quarterback and run with receivers. And sometimes it's tough. It's tough to see that unless you're watching Alabama. You know what I mean? Like Alabama's guys do that all the time. But with those other guys, it's more, do they have developmental tools and enough of the traits that you demand from the position? And in round two, in round two, I think Tampa's a perfect player in round two.
Okay.
As far as the smaller guys go, though, is there a need at that nickel corner position or at the slot corner position? And one of the things that you value there is feisty players who are willing to mix it up, but they have to be athletic. They've got to be able to turn and run. They're giving receivers two-way goes, and you've got to recover there. There's a lot of instinctual stuff that you need to see. Digging into those guys, I think Tampa fits more in round two, than the Florida State kid does. But fine developmental players. It's just it's a player that Holmes is going to have to like, even to take at that point in the draft. Because thinking about Holmes's history in the draft, it's almost like if he doesn't crush round two with a dude who's not in the Pro Bowl in the first 2 years, it's disappointing, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are both fine developmental players. Those are not guys that I think would come in and players that you would rely on right away. And to me, it feels like the window is now, and just kind of, taking players to fill spots on a roster. It feels like, I just feel like there's something else coming, I guess. We'll see.
No, it makes sense.
Scott, obviously we've talked about Josh Reynolds, unsure if he's going to come back. Obviously we hope Jameson Williams takes that next leap. Are there any late round, day 2, day 3 wide receivers that stick out to you that could possibly be in the Lions scope?
Yeah. There are. So again, it's a matter of priorities. Do you like, I like the idea of drafting a player, let's say in round 3 or 4, and allowing player to develop for you and not having to pay. If Reynolds comes back, that's fine, but you are paying him to bring him back. So, in terms of this draft, the receiver class is loaded. So, I almost think it doesn't really matter. I know we've talked, and generally, I think the thoughts are it's edge, interior offensive line, and corner are their needs, right? But that doesn't mean that the Lions don't do something in round 1 that we don't see coming just because somebody falls to them who shouldn't be there, or they desire to just take really good football players. And this is the problem. It's not a problem. It's just kind of where they are. It's easier and a lot more fun to talk about the draft when you're picking in the top 5 or in that range, like they have for a while. Picking at 29 is tough. It's like there are 28 players who are going to be picked before they draft. So I think we need to kind of set aside the absolutes on these are their needs. This is the positions they have to fill, and just kind of rest on the idea that they're gonna take a really good football player. We just don't know what position that's going to be. It's a long way of saying that I think in this draft, even taking a wide receiver in round 1, I don't think is out of the realm of possibilities. It's just not. So, as you know, again, this is a really deep draft, lots of receivers. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for a bigger bodied receiver like Josh Reynolds, or are you looking for speed and quickness and playmaking, kind of stuff like that? In round 1, there's a bunch of options. There's going to be, this is a great draft to need a receiver. I think when you look at Amon-Ra, he covers a slot. You're fine there. Jameson is never going to be 80 catches for 13. I just don't think he's an 80 catch guy. But the things that he does for the offense, other players can't do just because of his speed, right? So he's helping the running game just by being on the field. He's helping to open up parts of the defense with his speed where they can attack, in the seams and over the middle where Jared Goff really likes to throw the ball. So then it's, do you want a bigger bodied receiver, or do you want a possession type? You guys know where I'm going to go with this, I think. Do you want like an elite route runner, like a Ladd McConkey kind of player? Right? Okay. Like, I mean, if you think about this offense and you think about the things that Jared Goff likes out of receivers, McConkey is kind of like, it's a perfect fit. Goff really likes to trust his guys to run routes the way they're supposed to be run. McConkey's a technician. So round 2 for McConkey, I think would be phenomenal. I would love that.
Speaking my language, Scott.
Yes, I know we talked about it last time, but it's that kind of stuff where you'd have to target a specific player, and they would really have to appreciate that player's fit in the offense, regardless of whether or not he's redundant because maybe you view him as a slot receiver. I look at like what Cooper Kupp did with Matt Stafford.
Even Adam Thielen.
Yeah, just the ability to run routes and be precise and trustworthy and all that stuff would really open up their offense. So there's a bunch of guys like that. It's an interesting class.
For those who are joining right now, we're joined by our good friend Scott Bischoff, Detroit Lions and NFL draft analyst at DetroitLionsPodcast.com and staff writer at FootballGuys.com. Scott, I want to ask you, because this has been circulating today, Michigan native Darius Robinson, who, again, he's an intriguing player based on really his comments today. I think, not just he's a Lions fan, he was a Lions fan growing up, but based on his last year production, right? He switched from defensive tackle to defensive end, had 8.5 sacks. What are your thoughts on a guy like Darius Robinson and just kind of the fit there with the Detroit Lions?
So the stuff he said today screamed, "Hey Detroit, come and get me," kind of stuff.
I mean, the guy's a Marine. He almost was a Marine, Scott. Like,
yeah,
Dan Campbell guy.
Dog.
Yes, if there's anybody in this class that's a Dan Campbell guy, it's him. He'd be a very intriguing fit. Missouri plays a lot of 3-man fronts. He plays 5 technique in that defense, so he's handling lots of physicality all the time. So that's kind of the first issue, or it's not a problem, but it's just for the Lions, he would have to play a little more. He'd have to play a little wider, but I know he played in the 290s at Missouri this year, but he dropped like 10 pounds, a little over 12 pounds at the Senior Bowl, and he looked a little more sudden, a little quicker. So when I see him play, he stacks, like his ability to extend his arms with power is pretty awesome. And to shed guards and make plays against the run, he's a great run defender. Like I would call him an NFL level, a good run defender at the NFL level right now. Super heavy hands. He's very physical. He's very strong. He's difficult to move off the ball. It's just when you ask him to close on the quarterback, even when he wins, he looks like he labors a little. And it's not a knock because he's big and he's a big, heavy player. It's just asking him to turn into like Nick Bosa as an edge player, I think, is a mistake. I think you're looking at with his fit, it's more, he's going to come in and be a high level run defender on the edge and be a very disruptive player as a squeeze defender, which is going to make all their other players a little more productive. I like the fit. I wouldn't want people to think that he's this explosive edge guy when that's not necessarily what his game is, but I think he would fit just fine. And again, it's pick 29. So if you're telling me with pick 29, they're bringing in a high level run defender who's very physical and is going to work his ass off, who fits here, this city, and in that locker room, I think that's a great move. I mean, it's clearly in a position of need. I think he's a high level Josh Pascal type of player. So you can play him inside and outside, but it's just I wouldn't want people to think that he is like first. Like, he's not Chop Robinson with all the first step quickness and all that stuff. That's not his game. He's more physical and run through you than run around you, which I think there's some way you can appreciate that kind of game, especially in Detroit. I think it'd be a nice fit. It's just asking him to be a 10 to 12 sack guy might be a little much, but he would definitely improve that defensive line.
Would they have to draft him? Would that be a pick 29? Where do you think he would go? A guy like Darius Robinson?
In that range. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be one of those guys where if he falls to you at 29, he's definitely in the range of players you'd consider. I think there are a few players who, if they get into the 20s, the Lions could be really cute to go up and get. I think Byron Young from Texas is like that. And I think Jerzon Newton, they're both like three defensive tackles. That guy's out of Illinois. Both those guys, I think, if you went up to get those guys, you'd be adding a lot of interior pass rush, which is another way of doing it. So, there's a bunch of things at play there. But Robinson is a great fit. He'd be fine. He'd be a good pick. It wouldn't be like again, we have to settle on this. It's not like taking Aiden Hutchinson at 2. It's 29. It's different.
Scott, too, real quick, other side of the ball here, the offensive line. Last time you were on, and as well, Russell was on, and he mentioned this as well, is the possibility of the Lions actually going offensive line at 29, whether it's a tackle or guard, like kind of that kind of range there, and doing that. Want to see where you're still, if you're still kind of on that to where you feel like they could do that, and if so, if there was any more guys that popped up on your radar at 29 that the Lions can target, or you think they might.
Yeah, we talked last time. One of the things to pay attention to at the combine is the short shuttle. So it's let me get the numbers. Okay. So since 2010, there have been 28 offensive linemen. This is almost like a cheat code for looking at this test. So there have been 28 offensive linemen who have ran under 4.47 seconds or 4.47 or faster in the short shuttle. 24 of the 28 were drafted, and those guys have started 84% of their NFL games.
Wow.
So to me, it's like this. It's like there are 5 or 6 guys, I'll give you their names. And generally speaking, you want to find guys who can move, at an elite level, like obviously all those other players can, mm-hmm. Right? So, Zach Frazier from West Virginia is one. I think he's a guard center combo. Jackson Powers Johnson is the center from Oregon, but he can play guard. Graham Barton played tackle at Duke, but I think he is a high-level center guard. Cooper Beebe from Kansas State is a guard. I think he may be able to play center, but he's a guard all day long. And then Christian Haynes from UConn is another one. I think he's more of a round 2 player. And then there's Mason McCormick, who we talked about last time, the South Dakota State kid. I think he's a round 3 player. But there's a group of 6 or 7 guys that I really like their games. And then I want to see that short shuttle time. And if one of those guys runs like that, I think it just confirms some things. So, I think that it's very clear that they have a need there. Taylor Decker's on the last year of his contract. Are they going to extend him? My assumption is they're going to have to. I don't know how long that extension will be, but it's something that nobody's really talking about. He's on the last year of his deal, and then he's got a void year. So they're going to have to resolve that. That was part of the conversation last time about taking a tackle, playing him at guard and kicking him out, and playing him as a tackle down the road. But yeah, they're interior guys. I think of that list, I think Jackson Powers Johnson, Graham Barton, Zach Frazier, and Cooper Beebe would be in that round 1 mix. It just depends on what the Lions think of those guys, but it's certainly a need, and it's a position they could address for sure.
No, and we've been talking a lot about guys in the draft right now and position of need, which we just brought up, offensive line, but we already talked about it in the cornerback position. And a guy that I've been very against bringing into town and we're talking free agency now, is Kendall Fuller. And obviously, if they draft Kendall Fuller, it would proceed the way that they draft in the draft, obviously. What is your opinion on Kendall Fuller possibly coming to Detroit?
How much do you have to pay him?
Hypothetically, let's say $13 million. Hypothetically.
Ooh. I don't know. That's a good question. I would almost want to go a different direction.
Okay. We can agree there. We can agree.
But, if that's what you're left with and you feel like he's an upgrade over over what you have. The reality is also this, that even if you do, let's say you stay at 29 and you find a corner that you love, somebody falls to them and they can't believe it. And they show a video of them on draft night and they're going nuts in there because they can't believe this guy fell to them. It's very realistic to think that they're going to need a free agent to come in and play, because whoever they take at 29 is likely not jumping in year one and really making a huge impact at that position. So, that's why if you trade up for if you're trading up for Quinion Mitchell, it's because you think he can play in year one right away. I think he's going to test really good too, by the way. I think he's going to run in the low 4.4s, maybe high 4.3s, solidify his position there. But, I don't mind the Fuller thing. I wouldn't mind that at all. I wouldn't want them just to go get Kendall Fuller and then forget that the position exists. So if you let's say you draft Kool-Aid McKinstry in round one and Kool-Aid and Kendall Fuller's there too, I think that's fine. It's just, how do you want to manage your money? It's clearly a position of need. They need help there.
And Scott, we've talked about CJ question marks, whether he's going to return or not. We've talked about Caleb Bolick, the safety out of USC, I believe. Who are some other safeties that the Lions might be looking at if by chance CJ Gardner-Johnson doesn't come back?
Safety is not a position that I've really looked at all too hard to this point, simply because I don't think the Lions have a need there. I don't know, let me try to say it. There's always needs, right? But with where the Lions are, I think the position is sort of solidified with Kirby Joseph and with Brian Branch and with some of the other players that they have on their roster, where I think, to me, I look at the edge position. It's tough because I think it's the least position. I think they're loaded up at safety more than really at any other position on their defense. So I just can't see safety being a priority for them, looking at what they have. Like I would think that linebackers, I think they're pretty set at linebacker too, but between edge and corner, I think their needs are so dramatic there that safety is not necessarily. I mean, maybe you guys disagree. I don't know. It's just safety to me hasn't been a place where I've really settled in and looked at a bunch of players, just because I don't see a need there for the Lions. It doesn't mean there isn't, but between what they already have and the youth that they have, I think they're set there. It's more corners. Some of the hybrid combos, like Melifonwu, like Ifeatu Melifonwu coming out, you just never know where those guys are going to land. He played corner in college, but clearly between Ifeatu Melifonwu and Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, I think they're set. And I'd be surprised if they took a safety in this class. I really would, because I think they're set. I really do. And I would still think bringing back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr. is probably smart. But I think that is a position where they're kind of set, and they're set in the long term, and that's a good thing.
Scott, one last question before you go. I want to get your thoughts because we just talked about it with the L'Jarius Sneed stuff. I know he was just tagged, and a lot of Lions fans feel the urgency to go out and acquire a guy like that, give up draft capital, and extend him. If you were in Brad Holmes' position, what's the intrigue to you on a guy like L'Jarius Sneed, and would you pull the trigger on a player like that?
So the intrigue is. So there's multiple ways you can do things. You can load up on your defensive line, which allows you to get to the quarterback quicker, which helps the players in your back end because they have to cover for less time.
Right.
Or you can bring in players who are really good in coverage, which then helps your edge players and your interior defenders get home because receivers aren't open. So I would do it, and I would be pretty comfortable doing it. To me, the window is wide open for them to be Super Bowl competitive, and looking at the way Sneed plays, and I know it would cost something for him, but he's a difference maker immediately. So you wouldn't necessarily be like we would if you're doing that with Sneed, we're kind of eliminating the round one cornerback discussion.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I still think you're going to take talented players and you're going to develop those guys because you always have to do that. But if you're telling me that the Lions go out and they get L'Jarius Sneed and their needs are suddenly edge players and interior offensive line, I think they are loaded for next year and beyond to compete just because of, I mean, if we look at how bad in some ways their number one corner was last year and how much they gave up to number one receivers, thinking about limiting those guys and allowing, pressure to get home more. I can't think of a way that's a losing scenario. And yes, it would be costly, but you're going out and you're getting one of the best corners in the NFL to come in and pretty much lock down your defense for you. I would love it. I don't have much perspective for what they would have to give up for him.
Yeah.
I also don't think it matters that much because we're talking in here. We're talking about corners at pick 29 and 61 and, how much of a risk they are and how they're not going to come in right away and play. He's going to play right now. So, I think that window is open right now. It would be smart to take advantage of it. And, it doesn't mean you're ignoring the position, but it certainly means that you're loading that position and making your defense, you're taking your defense serious, giving it some serious juice. You would be for sure. I would do it.
Yeah. No, great stuff, Scott. Great stuff. Again, you could find Scott. I have his information there at the bottom. You can follow him on X at Bischoff_Scott. Him and Russ. I mean, we're gonna use you guys. You guys are our go-tos for the draft. You guys do great work together, especially.
Thanks, man.
And again, we like to have you back again. So, Scott, we appreciate you, man. And this combine is going to make some interesting storylines. We can't wait.
Yep, we'll chat. I look forward to coming back on with you guys.
Let's
Appreciate
go.
You're the man, Scott.
You're the man,
See
Scott.
you guys.
Thank you. There you go, Scott Bischoff. Once again, man, he's another great guest. That was great stuff from him. Yeah,
Hey,
I wanted
real quick, boys.
Yeah.
Before we move on, just because Gentry wasn't here yesterday, we kind of dove into it. And I know I saw that guy up north put a comment up too. I'll try to find it while we're talking about it. But I still think and he was unanimous with what you guys said, but Gentry, let's say CJ Gardner-Johnson leaves. You look around this division, I think safety depth, not a top tier safety, but safety depth that then does turn into a need because people throw Brian Branch into the safety conversation, like put him at safety. Yes, Brian Branch can play safety and he'd be good at it. But where Brian Branch is a difference maker is at that nickelback spot when he's playing that hybrid role. So if something happens to Kirby or Iffy, both guys who have injury history, if something happens to them, and that's when you'd have the Will Harrises of the world come in, and that's when there's a difference made and is exposed, especially when you look around the division. So what is your opinion on that?
No, that's exactly kind of why I asked the question, because if CJ's not there and one of those guys do go down, you need some depth. I wasn't asking it as if a safety is going to come in and start off rip, but I know of all the different ways they use Brian Branch, so you can't really consider him a safety. Like you said, he's more effective in the nickel. So I was just wondering if, there was a backup plan just in case one of those guys do injure. I know it do get injured, but I know it's not one of, our top three positions moving into the draft, but with the later rounds, I didn't know if he expects maybe one of those guys to get called. So
what I took from what he said was I think they'll address safety, maybe sign a safety, maybe re-sign. I mean, who knows what they're going to do. I just think he doesn't think the Lions are like, man, we got to draft a safety. I think it makes sense.
I get that.
I think too, like yesterday when we had the conversation, that's kind of where my point of view is to where there are a lot of different positions of needs to where you probably need to focus on that, especially the first 3 or 4 rounds. Is, hey, you need to focus on defensive line, corner, maybe the offensive line. Like there are way more, to me, like that safety room is already stacked. Like it's just a bonus to add the depth to it. And I think they are focused on depth as well. That's why the CJ thing, it's like, is he going to come back or is he not? And if he doesn't, I was more so towards the side to where they find like a someone who can play right away as like a depth piece in free agency instead of going and drafting. Because like the Kirby thing, like Kirby came out and obviously like hit right away, and it did take him a little bit, but like once he started getting in kind of reps, you could tell right away with Kirby. And same like Brian Branch was supposed to be a first round. Remember, he went to the draft and he was the only player to stay for the second day. So he was supposed to be a first.
5.
Yeah, so he was supposed to be a first round draft pick. So like it's not like the guys you drafted like are like Brian Branch was a first round draft pick technically in my eyes. So like I just don't think like them wasting a pick on a safety. Even later in the draft, like I don't see them drafting a safety later in the draft, late day 2, to where you're like, okay, yeah, that's a great depth piece. Like you still have to make sure that he can play, because you're not getting someone in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Like you're gonna have to get someone late. So I just don't even see if they do that. Like, is that considered even depth? Because you don't know what he's going to be right away. To where I think like I just think it's more so like if CJ doesn't come back, just go sign a vet safety in free agency for a year or 2, and then address that next draft or address that next year. So that's just my outlook on it. That's why I'm kind of with Scott a little bit, to where it's like he didn't even think about it. And I do see why, like maybe we start looking at safeties at the back half of the draft just to get some ideas. But and two, like corner, like we've seen them convert corners to safety. So like if it does come down to it and you need depth, maybe they draft a corner, an outside corner that with some size, and they think he can move to safety, and then that's like an actual
Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, there's just a lot of options. But
Hey,
Cooper DeJean, man.
Yeah, I'm curious. That's one guy I am curious with him. Like how
he's not running in the combine.
Damn.
That's good for him. Cooper DeJean's draft stock is high. He's a white cornerback that's projected a top 20 pick. If there's a potential to mess it up, you don't do that.
Yeah.
And if he runs a 4.5 instead of a 4.49, there's an issue, and he's going to draft in the second. He's going to go into the second round, because now people are going to view him strictly as a safety. Right now, he still has that cornerback over his head.
He's our only hope at corner. He's like
he's carrying the torch.
He's playing safety.
Jason Sehorn reincarnated.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
My whole screen just went black, and you guys all just started having like the circle of like that circle of death.
Oh, you had the Lucas Wi-Fi for
and I was like, wait a second, I've never seen that in weeks of doing the show.
We didn't notice.
What's happening?
You're good.
All right.
No, you're good.
Did you guys say Cooper DeJean because he's not running in the combine?
Yeah.
I think it's good for him too, because I'm pretty sure he's coming off an injury too. So like coming off an injury, you probably aren't going to run your best either way. It's probably like the perfect scenario for him, to be honest.
He just can't display his 4.2 speed, but it is what it is. Brendan H, thank you for the $2, my man. He donates. He says, how would you guys feel about JC Horn?
I wanted to bring him up earlier because JC Horn was, I believe, he picked 8th overall out of South Carolina. He's a man-to-man guy that has just dealt with injury after injury after injury, but he's going to be dirt cheap. So if you want to talk about a situation where the Lions possibly could triple up, if they don't want a guy in the first 2 rounds, but you sign a Stephon Gilmore, JC Horn, and then a Max Melton in the 3rd round, you just added tremendous depth, because JC Horn is very young too, and there's a lot of intangibles, which Brad talks about all the time, which he loves. Man-to-man corner, which Aaron Glenn loves and which his scheme is built around. JC Horn for a cheap 2-3 year option, that would be, I mean, I know it's a cliche term to say, but it's playing with house money, because if he pans out, he can pan out to that top 8 overall pick. But if he doesn't, well, you're not really paying for that much.
I like that.
The risk versus reward on that JC Horn is really, high. I think if he stays healthy, he's going to be a great corner. And I know Adam was really high on him last year too. So I wouldn't mind that at all. I mean, like Lucas said, if he's on a favorable contract because of all the injuries he's gone through, then, that makes it even more of a plus. So,
well, speaking of the NFL prospects, I do want to spend some time here to talk about Darius Robinson, because we asked Scott. Scott's a big fan of him. Scott actually added things that I didn't even know. Like he provided insight there with Darius Robinson that actually made me fall in love with him even more. Like what he said today, which I'll play the clip in a second. Like that, it's great, but it's really the human being, because that's what it comes down to with Brad Holmes. Like you look at the player, he's a great player. 8.5 sacks, forced fumble this year, playing defensive end, cut some weight, moved over from defensive tackle. But what Scott said, like he's an NFL-ready run defender, Lions are going to fall in love with that. The mentality, just hit his character, they're going to fall in love with that. He already had a meeting today with the Lions, so I'm sure they love him. Like he's a guy at 29 that I think, like Scott said, he's not Aiden Hutchinson, but he doesn't. I don't think he has to be. Like he's a guy that's going to do the dirty work, and he's a guy that I think can be productive. And he's a big man. He's 6. What is he? 6'5"? I think 6'5". Yeah, 6'5". He's a huge dude. And I know when Scott said he's kind of a high level Josh Pascal, people were like, what? I think what Scott means though is what Josh Pascal should be, his potential. I think Darius is a guy that could fulfill that and be much better. So there was a lot of intrigue there. I'm going to play this clip and then I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on Darius Robinson. So let me pull this up. This was him speaking at the Combine today. And you can kind of hear the check and hear some of what he had to say.
I can run, I can hit, I get my hands inside. I can do anything, man. Like, just give me an opportunity to put my cleats in the ground. I showed that at the Senior Bowl. I got better each and every day against the best competition in college football. I played in the SEC, which is the best conference in football. And that's the thing. I don't want to talk about myself too much. Just cut the tape on it and tell you. And I can run.
That last part was a bar.
Love this guy.
Dude is enormous.
Dude, he's huge. He's
You know who he reminds me of? And at least he's not the prospect by any means coming out of the draft, but Leonard Williams out of USC, as far as what he can turn into the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Williams, 6'5", 6'4", just big body that can play. He came out as an edge and then transferred to the inside. And I think if you put weight on him, that's a guy that can make a play like Leonard Williams. And people wanted him around the trade deadline. So that's a name that when people are like, who does he remind you of? Reminds me a lot of Leonard Williams.
Dude, I think too, like at 29, like he's projected. I've seen some mock drafts when I look today, 26, 27, 28, and then potentially could fall to the Detroit Lions. The first thing is just like the way he answers questions, who he is. He's literally, they asked him, who's your favorite NFL team? The Detroit Lions. Like he has a lot. He knows exactly what's happening in the building right now. And he kind of gets that vibe, and he gives you, he throws off that Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes kind of mentality where like, I'm just going to go out there and work. And I saw another interview of him, and the words that he used was violent. And that's exactly what you're like. We talked about this yesterday for like a whole segment about how we want this defensive line to be more violent. And that's exactly what it is. He's a guy that sounds like a great team guy, and he's going to help this team out. But he wants to go out there and get dirty and make plays. And like I watched his film today, he moved from the inside out, even on the out. Like and I spoke with Easy a little bit about him too, because Easy actually called me and mentioned that he didn't start playing football until his junior year of high school. So he's still someone. Yes, so he's still someone that's learning, and like he's what would it be like 5 years into his career, 6 years at most into his career right now. So he's still learning, and he's already that good. And like when you see his film, he doesn't look like the traditional edge, like Scott was saying, like Hutch, where he's, he can get up on 2 feet and kind of make him. He looks like kind of like an interior guy on the outside, but he dominates, and he does, like, as big as he is, for his size, it looks like he comes off pretty quick, and he can get to the quarterback. And I know the one thing Scott said that is initially like he's going to be a great rush defender instantly. Like he's an NFL dude right away. And I think at 29, like that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a guy, whether it's a corner or defensive line, who's going to make an impact right away. And Brad said it a couple times, like, I just want best player available, like whoever that dude is. And if he's there, in my opinion, he might be the best dude available. And he has a military background, and that right there alone, like that discipline, like knowing that his whole family, that means a lot as well, in my opinion.
Well, this real quick, this comment, I just want to share this comment. He says, Brandon says he wasn't talking to those reporters. He was talking directly to the Lions. Well, I'll tell you one thing real quick. What he said in that video, he said, I keep it simple, keep it violent, and keep it fast. Does that sound like something Dan said before? Violent, fast. That is, if I had to, name a Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell guy, it's Darius Robinson. Like he fits the mold perfectly, and he fits a need in which they need.
Yeah. And kind of to what Scott said, comparing him to Josh Pascal, I don't think that he meant like obviously the player as. I think they can more do the same things. Like he said, Josh Pascal, obviously he can play the edge, but he can play the interior too. Like Jeff, you were the one preaching that all season long to give him a shot on the interior. So I think those two things combined with him being a Brad Holmes guy makes him a likely target.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing too. Like he fits a need. He's a defensive end. He's got potential, tons of it. You just brought in who Dan Campbell called, and I would agree, the best D-line coach in the NFL. So talk about like to develop a guy like this, Darius Robinson, who has the physical tools. He plays with the right mindset. Got a little bit of he almost went to the Marines. He almost joined the Marine Corps, I believe, or joined the Army. Not sure exactly what it was. Regardless, that's a guy that Dan Campbell, it just is. That Dan Campbell's going to be like, okay, this guy is character, check. Football player, check. 8.5 sacks in Missouri this year. So
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be mad if he's in the Honolulu Blue in the next 2 months. I would be actually very happy with that pick.
And I'm glad you said that, because I know when we do these PFF mocks, it's like Darius Robinson, where does he go in these mocks? Who cares? If he's announced at 29, no one's going to give a damn. Like, it's like the Jack Campbell thing at 18. Every PFF mock, I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. He was always in the second round. Like Darius Robinson, you could talk about, well, he'll be there at 60. No. If you like him, you take him at 29.
Yes. It's the same thing with the Jahmyr Gibbs thing. It's all of the Jack Campbell. Like, you could have probably waited for Jack. Like, it's if you have your guy and Brad's, he has shown that if he has his guy and he has his draft board, I'm sure if you put it up to every single team in the NFL and GM in the NFL, it is night and day difference, because he has his guys and he doesn't care where he's taking them. He's going to take a guy that he wants playing football for him. And Darius, he's that dude. He is that dude that I'm sure he's on the top of the list.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just, but I just to Scott's what he said about Aiden Hutchinson. Like, he's not Aiden Hutchinson, but guess what? He gets to play with Aiden Hutchinson, and he gets to play with Willie McNeil. Like, so he gets to play with great talent on the defensive line. Like, it's only going to help him. And who knows? I mean, Josh, best guy. I know he mentioned him too. If Josh has anything left to give, like, there's another piece. And I think Josh still has something left in the tank. I'm not going to put him in the Levi Owens-Enrique category yet.
No,
right?
I'm with you. He was stopping Debo on end arounds in the NFC Championship game. He's contributing. Levi's out there catching water out of the fucking bottle.
Jesus.
Hey, they could still too. Like, if you want a guy like that can go on the other side of Hutch, like, that's still something in free agency you can address. Like, it's not like this is just because you get a guy who might not be as as big of an edge rusher as Hutch because you want a bookend. Like, he could still probably do that, and I'm sure he's going to develop. But like, you could still go out and get someone like that. That doesn't leave the door closed for that.
Some other players
actually.
Some other players that I wrote down here, just like going through and looking at prospects who I think are Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes guys. It's funny that we're doing this now. I wrote down Braylon Trice because I think Braylon Trice. Yeah, I think he's a guy that we'll see. You know, he's mocked in the second round. He's a guy that I think the Lions are going to like too. And I also had, funny Scott mentioned him, Quinion Mitchell. I think he's a guy that the Lions are going to absolutely. I mean, for God's sake, I mean, he just came out and said that he didn't cuss in games because there were kids watching. Like, it's just like the simple, like I'm saying, I know it's like,
Hey,
that's a bit much.
I might throw the cap on that.
Hold on.
I might.
Yeah, it might be cap. It might be cap, but like, it gives you kind of insight. Like, his best friend is his grandma and his mother. Like, he's just like the character thing I'm talking about. Like, it's just, you check it, and he's a great football player too. So yeah, there's more guys like that.
Braylon Trice is a guy that we've all put in our mocks, like in the second round, like a lot of our mocks. And I'm pretty sure today I did see he met with the Lions today, 1-on-1.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
to be on the list.
Sadly, we'd probably have to trade up for Quinion, but I mean, if the opportunity is there, who knows? But
another one too that we kind of talked about in the group chat was Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins, I thought he was right up there with Darius. The way that I'm a big Buckeyes fan, but you guys know all year I was like, second round, Chris Jenkins, bring him home. And if he's tests well at the combine, that's a guy that even at 29, if Brad Holmes takes Chris Jenkins, I'm cool. Because he's making an impact to the interior of the defensive line right now.
His interview today was unbelievable. When you said that today, Lucas, like him and Darius, those are two guys where I was like, okay, those are two, like, I on my board already. Now they just moved to the top of it because the way they and I know it's weird, and I'm sure like once they get these one-on-one interviews, they're able to break this down more. But like every guy is obviously going to try and sweet talk you and whatever, you know what I mean? Like they're going to like try and tell you what you want to hear, and so like it does sound good. But like the way those two guys answered questions today and what they're Detroit Lions. Like,
did
they
Chris
are
Jenkins
all about
say anything about the Lions, or was he just more fired up? I know how you what's his name
I
brought
don't
up the
know.
line.
He didn't say specifically anything Lions because I think it was just a normal press conference, not just a Lions one. But he did like him talking about like, I really don't care about individual stats. Like I want to like he basically went on a rant about how he wants to play as a unit, and it's all about being the best defense in the league, and it's about winning as a team. Like his whole spiel, like it's this thing like Michigan, they won the national championship, and like that defense was the best in the country, and he was like, I really didn't care if I got a sack or not. Like I didn't care about anything. All we cared about is like, is our unit the best in the country? That was all he cared about. And like hearing that, and then hearing about like how good he just wants to get better and be a teammate and help like, dude, that's literally what Brad and Dan want, is just dudes that have the skill and the talent, but also they're like, we want to be great and we want to be the best in the league at it. So
Mr. Detroit City, thank you for the $2. She says hashtag Motor City Mullet, best hair in all of the land. LFG.
Know it, Boone. It's that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boone.
There it is. There it is.
That is it's immaculate.
How does it look, boys? I haven't seen it
It's
today.
longer in the back too.
Hey,
it's long in the back now, boys.
hey, you look great,
its
bro.
form.
You look phenomenal.
I can't see it, so I hope I trust you guys. You guys aren't just typing me up and it just looks bad.
No.
It's like Justin Jefferson running routes.
All right.
Crispy.
Ooh, I like that.
Chris.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow, now it's
I can never see it. I don't know how to look at it. Like,
real quick too, I want to mention I just got a list because Starflame, it's a work in progress. I just got a list of who the Lions have met with. Did you guys?
I did. Dude, I had a sticky note on my phone here. I literally had a sticky note and I wrote all the names down and I put it on my phone so I can name it to you guys. In the last segment, I grabbed my phone to say it to you guys. Sticky note's gone. I don't know where the sticky note's gone.
Here's the list. This is per SI.com. This is all Lions. Good
That's
friend
where I got
John
it from
McBreen.
as well.
Yep, they did a great article. I think Christian wrote it actually. You could check that out. But here's the list. It's Western here. I'll go through it. Western Michigan edge, Marshawn Nealon. They got Washington defensive end, like I mentioned before, Braylon Trice, Houston edge, Nelson Caesar, and Missouri, of course, defensive end, Darius Robinson. All defensive ends, of course. It just makes sense. They're doing group by group, which these names, I mean, two guys that are local, Marshawn Nealon and Darius Robinson, and then Braylon Trice, who I think is a super intriguing player as well. I haven't watched Nelson Caesar. I'm not familiar with his game, so I can't really speak on that. I'm sure I'll dive more into it. But those are the guys that officially have visited so far. It's going to be continuously updated, but that's who visited so far with the Detroit.
I did see too, and Jeff, I sent you the tweet from ML Football. They said Missouri DB and his Rakestraw met with a bunch of teams, and the Lions were one of them.
He met with like the whole league.
I know that when I sent it to you, I was like, I didn't know they were meeting with DBs yet, but I saw that, and then I looked at a couple websites that have these, and I just saw edges. I didn't realize too. I a little brain fart on my end. I thought like they were meeting with all the players today, every position, and then I saw all these edges, and I'm like, they're going edge at 29, like it's set. And then I realized you guys see where my brain how my brain works sometimes. But then when it clicked in my head, I was like, oh, okay, no.
Yeah,
like it took a little bit and it clicked. So
Dark Flames, so we're quick. A limit of 30 visits per team at the combine.
Yeah. So you know what I'm interested in, and I'm going to do the homework in the next couple of days because we do have a couple of weeks for this. All of these visits that when they come to Detroit, these players, whatever it is, I think those are top 30 visits as well. I want to go see how many of those visits the last 3 years that Brad Holmes brought guys in, how many of those guys got drafted. Like I'm interested to see that because like that'll tell you like if all of the guys that he drafted that they brought in, there's usually a list of about 20 players. You're going to have an idea. So I'm going to go look at that this week after the combine's done. So we have a list of that.
I want to pivot here because it pertains to the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell, there was an NFLPA survey, and he was graded in the top tier of NFL coaches in terms of grading per the NFLPA. They graded a lot of different things, which we'll go through just organizationally. Like they do food, nutritionist, locker room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, team travel, head coach, ownership. And I'll show you what the Lions grades were. But they gave Dan Campbell. Did you guys see this?
Yeah, I saw a couple of things that made my eyebrows rise. I was like,
okay, I was going to ask you to guess the grade, but if you already saw it, we'll check it out here. Okay, so this is Ari Mara of My
Absolute
Sports
dog.
NFL head coaching grades per NFLPA survey. It's Andy Reid. This is the only coaches that got A pluses. Andy Reid, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell. Okay. Now what? What you got?
I just want to say something. I'm looking. Do any of you guys see Kevin Stefanski's name up here?
Jesus.
It's probably down.
I'm just saying.
The B,
I'm just
C
saying.
range.
Yeah. Well,
it's probably like B or
it's
C.
not A. It's fair. It's a fair point. And it's essentially based on it's a survey sent out, grade your own head coach. It's surprising you think like biasly players will be like A plus, my coach, A plus, A plus. But I think they grade other, I don't know how it exactly works, but there's the 3 that got A pluses. A, Sean McDermott, Zach Taylor, Mike McCarthy, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Nick Sirianni, Mike Tomlin, Kyle Shanahan, and Pete Carroll. Now this list doesn't, again, I want to make this clear. Like, it's not like, oh, Kevin O'Connell's better than he's the 3rd best coach or he's one of the best coaches. Yeah. This is just per the players. It's like when Aaron Glenn, remember the survey that players said Aaron Glenn's the best coach to play for in terms of coordinators? Yeah. Like, yeah, it's not like he's the best coordinator in the NFL. Defensive, it was clearly Spags, but it's just how players feel. So that's what this is based on. It's not ranking or anything like that. A minus, Jonathan Gannon.
He's still not there. Eberflus above Stefanski.
Okay, we'll get to it. A minus was Jonathan Gannon, Sean Payton, Brian Dable, Doug Peterson, Shane Steichen, Frank Reich, and D'Amico Ryans. B plus was John Harbaugh, Matt LaFleur, and Mike Vrabel. B was Matt Eberflus, Brandon Staley. Wow. Robert Saleh. B minus Kevin Stefanski, Bill Belichick. B minus is Bill Belichick, Dennis Allen, Todd Bowles. C plus Arthur Smith. C Ron Rivera, and then D. Josh.
All 3 of those guys fired at the bottom.
There's a lot of A's, and
don't want to be down there. Yeah, a ton of A's.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like, right, if you're hired, and it's coaches that have been around their team. I mean, Jonathan Gannon is a first-year head coach, but like all these
most
other
players
coaches,
are going to be like good. It's like I get those at work all the time. Like, let's say take this survey real quick for your boss, and it's like, dude, I'm not even taking my time. I just do good everything and just move on. Like, I feel like that's probably what some of these players do. Am I? Do you guys think I'm wrong or no?
Not the Browns, apparently.
Well, not the Browns. I'm sure if there's some I'm sure there are some people who have bad bosses and bad things they don't like, and they're in bad situations. So we're like, I've been waiting for this survey, and they're like, all right, here we go, and they start marking.
This is like, I'm sure.
Me, I'm just a simple guy, and if I just had hey, if you just let me do me, hey, brother, I'll give you an A all around. But I could see that.
I think, like you said, Boone. Real quick, shout out to Phil. He just became a Crunch member. We appreciate you, Phil.
Shout out.
But I think to Booner's point, like, unless you really have a problem with the coach, like Jonathan Gannon, like, it's just players like him. Cool, he's up here. Like, but Bill Belichick, there might be some this is my opportunity.
Yeah.
to let the people know that I'm miserable here. Give him a B minus.
Mac
Jones, or it's probably average. It's probably averages. So Dan Campbell got mostly A pluses.
I'm sure literally everyone on the staff or on every player it was one of those things where they're having a great run and the survey comes in and everyone just gives they literally do what I just said. And I bet you every single player just did what I said, and they just said, well, we'll mark you down for an A for everything. We really don't care. Like, you brother, we're going to the NFC Championship game. Who cares?
Well, here's the grading system, or at least the grades for the Lions. And we'll go through this. Let's start at the top here. I'll zoom in so you guys we don't give too much away. So on the far left, it's category, and then you have grade, and then you have rank out of 32. Obviously 32 teams. So treatment of families. That's a really oddly specific thing. I think it's just like, how they treat them, how they take care of them when it comes to games and stuff like that. The Lions got a B, which is 8th out of 32 teams. Food cafeteria, 19th. I don't know what do they do?
That's why I have my hand raised. If they need someone to come in and cook good quality meals for the fellas, dude, I will get it. I'm not a great cook. I'll make sure we get those boys fed, man. Like,
what are we feeding them? Pony dogs? I mean, what are we doing?
No, like nutrition. Like, dude, I will go to school I'll do what we need to do if we need to figure this out. We should not be 19th to 25th when it comes to nutrition, food, and cafeteria. What are we doing here, fellas? Gentry. Like, let's get these guys some. Yeah, let's figure something out here. Some nutritions, meals, or something.
You're telling me Pene's not eating good?
What's going on? Yeah, what's going on?
Pene, I'll cook up for you, brother. I'll cook up.
Oh my gosh, they should be eating like me, or they shouldn't be eating like me, to be honest. But eating good.
Yeah,
That's
it's
unbelievable.
I
I think
don't
that's the
get
lowest
food.
thing.
Maybe the cafeteria too. Maybe it's like they're. I mean, what are you eating? Like it looks like a Denny's. I mean, what are we doing here? It's a Denny's vibe, and you're getting Conies. Like what's
It's like it's like a high school cafeteria.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Denny's?
Hey, nothing. If
Shout out
late
Denny's,
at night,
man.
late at night. If you're looking
Denny's,
for problems,
Waffle House.
you
IHOP.
go to Waffle House.
Shout out.
IHOP, no, I'll pass on IHOP.
Used to
I
Tony.
like
does
hey,
anyone know Tony's?
Slander IHOP.
No, IHOP's goaded.
The International House of Pancakes, Lucas.
Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah, International
Not
House
my
Pancakes is
international.
good. No, it's good
not
on
my
a
international
Saturday.
house.
Well, yeah, you are from Toledo, brother. That's not international. That's
All right,
its own land.
It's not mine. It's not mine.
Don't you
Here's
do
the-
that?
Here's the next one. Nutritionist, dietitian, dude. They're getting fed Coney dogs. Like 25th.
I don't know what's
What is going on?
Bro.
Dude,
we need to figure this out, dude. I'm telling you.
Rob said prison food. I mean,
Yeah. This has to get situated. There's no way you can be one of the best.
what
in
are
the
we
league and have
doing
that.
here? Dude, I mean,
The nutritionist, man, 25th. Like,
yeah, I don't-
Dietitian?
Yeah,
I'll get in there, man.
like you said, Mike, Panay's eating good. I guess I don't know what they're feeding these people. I don't know. Dietitian. I mean, are people just gaining weight? And I mean, how's Broderick Martin? I mean, should I be worried?
They got a lot of developmental guys as far as weight. Dan Skipper's probably a hard man to keep up with nutritional wise.
Yeah,
Isaiah Buggs,
Burrito
no wonder the
Jones
man
with
had to
throws
leave,
down in
dude.
the kitchen.
Bond.
That's
Bugs
what
left
was-
'cause the food was so
He's
bad.
actually great.
That's what was actually going on with Isaiah Buggs is this cafeteria situation, this nutrition, man.
He
Buggs,
moved on.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, you have locker room B-, training room B, training staff B, which is like mid, like a little above mid. I mean, they got it's not agree. Like the nutritionist at 25th is crazy. I mean, the dietitian at 25th is kind of crazy. And then you get down to the other grades, strength coaches A-. Okay, hey, okay. I 13th. That's fine. Team travel B, head coach A+, like we discussed. Ownership.
Ooh.
I was shocked at this one, actually.
Yeah,
I was
I'm gonna be
shocked.
real, me too.
21st?
21st B-. That's unacceptable. I mean, I don't know Sheila personally, but that
Maybe there's something that we don't know.
You know what it could
but
be?
I
It
don't
could
even
be
want
that
to insinuate that. Is she that bad? I mean,
Maybe there's just, and I'm just saying a real possibility here. I think maybe there's more Chris Spielman in effect than we all realize. I think Chris
No, it's
Spielman
definitely Rod Wood.
Him too, Rod. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rod Wood too.
Rod Wood.
But both of those guys.
I wonder what it was
Sheila
at
doesn't do
before.
anything.
I wonder what it was at before this season as far as the ownership grade. So
21st.
maybe that's a come up. Maybe it used to be like a C- or C or something. So maybe it's getting better.
I have a funny story that I have the bus here, but well, not really, because I'm not naming the name. Random story, super random. Like it makes no sense. I go to Home Depot. Okay, I'm at Home Depot. I'm looking for paint. I'm trying to set up a setup for it's a whole nother thing. Anyway, I'm getting the paint. I go up to the desk. There's a guy working there, and he goes, me and my mom. I was with my mom. We were just chopping it up, spending some time together, and we're talking. I'm just talking actually about crunch time and what we're doing. Blah blah blah. And he says, "Oh, you do sports?" Like he said something like that. I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, my brother worked for the Fords." And he goes, "They used." He calls, or I worked. Because he might lose his job now. I think it's worked. He says, "Yeah." He calls Martha Ford, Marth Vader. That's what, because she's like, I guess that
Wow.
it must be like I don't know if that's like a shot as in she's like terrible. I don't know what it is, but Marth Vader's
That's
aggressive.
what I would take that as for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's a
I don't know what else.
It's not a compliment by any means. But
Darth
no,
Vader wasn't a good
today.
guy.
It happened literally today as we're going to do this. Like, it's how funny is that? He goes,
Maybe-
yeah, he goes, but you didn't hear it from me. I'm like, well, buddy, I'm going. To
Just said it in front of 200 people.
I'm gonna talk about it.
Hey, maybe
it's Martha. I don't know.
that's what my point is. Maybe that like there is still like Martha. She is around a little bit. Like you do see that like in the draft room, and you see Martha sitting there. Maybe it is just that there's still other people that were involved before still around, and Sheila like obviously is in charge, but there's other people that other guys just probably don't like. And there is a good point too. Like if we're being honest, Kansas City Kansas City was ranked 32nd in ownership. Like their owner, and they've won 2 Super Bowls. So
Yeah,
like,
it is weird.
or
Dictatorship
3.
over there. They win
So-
by any means possible.
Yeah, so like I don't think it's like as big of a deal as we think, the ownership
Not
being
giving you a wide
21st.
receiver.
But I don't think it's like a big deal. I just think, you know.
Yeah, Marth Vader? Like that's like what
It's
are we
pretty
doing?
funny though.
How are the
Yeah.
strength coaches an A- and 13th? Did everyone just get an A on that assignment? Like it
Everyone's
doesn't
back
matter.
again?
They didn't have a
Everyone-
choice.
They love the strength coaches, brother, in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would love to know more details on the ownership grade. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, if the fact that the man said his brother calls Martha Marth Vader.
Good.
MTR. He says, no BS. I heard the Marth Vader nickname myself from someone who works for the family. Is this a thing?
It must be
mean,
a
like,
thing.
what-
Good, hey,
are
good
we-
thing she's moved on then.
Are we
Jeez.
getting inside information? Like, what's going
Hey,
on?
by the way, the organization was when she was in there. I don't doubt it.
Marth Vader.
I'm happy we have Sheila then. That makes me that much more that Sheila's around.
Yeah. Are you kidding
Thank
me?
God.
I
Oh
mean,
my
even
gosh.
even for that. I mean, to be called, like, to have a name like, it's kind of a badass name, but also, like, is she that bad? I don't know. I don't know. But
I don't ask iKing to ever delete comments. iKing, I encourage you to delete that comment. Well,
Darth Martha. That one?
oh, actually, no, I thought that was for Sheila. Never mind. Keep that one. I thought it was towards Sheila for a
What?
second.
Yeah,
We're
like, don't-
ready to die on this.
Yeah, I was like,
Can you delete that?
don't do that to Sheila. We're not giving nicknames out to Sheila here. Let's keep Sheila locked in.
And
Right.
MTR says he mentioned this 3 to 4 years ago about the nickname. And I think that's what the
Love
gentleman I
iKing.
mentioned today
Marth
meant.
Vader is great.
Yeah, it's crazy. John Hughes says Cowboys is a B.
Darth
B
Vader.
ownership. Wow. See, like this stuff's like, what is
Jerry World.
Jerry? He's got a yacht. He's got a humongous.
He's got more than a yacht.
Well, I'm just saying he has.
What was
a
he
yacht.
ranked?
He probably
What was
has
he ranked?
multiple, whatever, but he has a
Yeah.
yacht. And Michael was on Stephen A. Smith's podcast. I think Stephen was on his podcast. And he mentioned that no player's been on that yacht but Dak Prescott once because they had like a mutual destination. Like it was kind of like they were going to the same thing. But like, man, if Sheila had a yacht, she probably does. But you don't think Sheila would be, if she was on the yacht often, she'd be like, come on, boys. You know, come
sure.
hang out. Like,
Bring the
I
boys
feel like
out.
she's
CJ on there. Hell
You're
yeah.
welcome
Heard
to follow.
CJ have a ball.
like
She
Jerry's like,
probably-
no, you players aren't as, you cannot go on this yacht.
She
Man.
probably drives some of
Well-
these guys around in like Cobras and like Broncos and stuff, and she's just like, "Let's go for a ride real quick," and there's Allen Park just whipping it around.
Yeah,
Check out this new F-150. Come on, Hutch.
Martha
Like,
and Sheila
alright.
and a Bronco. I mean, hey, never know. John Hughes also said the Panthers are a D. Well, that's fair. That's.
I want to know what did the Cowboys get for their ownership? B. It sounds
Yeah,
like
he said a B. He said a B.
Well,
Which I mean, that's a little. I don't know.
I would give him.
They
an
got to bring the
F.
White House back from the
What-
90s for the
what did the
boys. It'll go up to
49ers
an A.
get?
That would be a good one. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. If you can find that, Booner or somebody, if you happen to find it, that'd be interesting. I don't know. I really don't.
But something we are talking about earlier, I'll just bring it in because we're kind of all over the place. Booner brought it up, how many people of the last draft class that the Lions drafted that they actually met with. And
Yeah.
if I'm seeing this correctly, it was only Brian Branch and Sam Laporta. They did not meet with Jahmyr Gibbs or Jack Campbell.
Wow.
Well, they met with Hendon Hooker too, but they did not meet with
Tweaking
Jahmyr
that with Jahmyr. I
Gibbs.
should be tweaking, but I feel like they did because I feel like Scotty
No, they-
Montgomery was that at
they
the
met-
combine?
This is Pride of Detroit. Credit
Oh,
They
to
met,
them.
yeah.
at the they met at the combine because I remember the Jack Campbell video at the combine.
Yeah,
Well, and
Uh,
Jameer, they were like, "How do you hold a
yeah.
couple
They're telling
hold
him
yeah.
to like high point the
Maybe
ball.
this
and
is just, I don't know. Actually, it's got top 30 and NFL combine visits, so I might be wrong, but
But regardless, if
I'm looking it up
let's
real
say
quick.
all these players did meet with them, it kind of tells you where they go when they meet the player, when they
Yeah.
meet the individual. They tend to lean that way, like
they're
that
not
should
wasting
be.
time.
49ers
Yeah.
A-. Wait,
for
Yeah.
what? For ownership?
Yeah, for
ownership. NFL
That's
owner
what-
grades. 49ers. Yep. Lions got a B-, which isn't bad. The Lions are better than the Jets, Bengals, Rams, Seahawks, Chargers, Colts, Patriots. Panthers, Bucks, Steelers. Like, they're better than a lot of people. So Dolphins and Vikings were both A for ownership.
Yeah, I was just curious with the 49ers because their owner comes out and talks a lot. I feel like he speaks very well. He's very communicative with the coach, GM, and everything. So I was just curious where they put him at. I think he's pretty solid.
The Vikings are like A in everything, it looks like.
Yeah, they're a great organization, like top to bottom.
Switch to them, Jeff.
Well, it's actually what the Lions, I'm going to be honest, it's what the Lions are finally like, they've understood the last couple of years that you have to be in lockstep from top to bottom. The 49ers have been. The Lions are now. That's why I'm surprised with the low grade. Like, I would think Shelia would deserve like an A.
Probably a couple of like more years of playoff wins. You
know
what I mean?
I don't think B- is that crazy. Like, it says 21st, but like, I don't think B- is like actually that crazy. Like, that
could be like tied for 21st or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's just so many teams that got A's and B's to where I don't know. I don't think B- is like a crazy grade. At least it wasn't like a D or an F.
I want to ask you guys real quick, and we'll talk about this more in depth tomorrow, but are there any prospects you're excited for the Combine to kind of look at, maybe to rise their stock or fall? Anybody in specific? Because I think for me, I'm excited for Braylon Trice. I think that's a guy that I'm looking for. I'm also Chop Robinson. You see what he said? He's like, I'm running 4.4.
Chop Robinson, his interview kind of made me like.
We're about to find out.
Chop's a guy too that I feel like we all haven't heard like the best things about him. A lot of people aren't really and two, it's like one of those things like Lukas talks about this all the time, and Dan, everyone talks about it. It's like, just because you put great grades up doesn't mean like you should move up in the draft. And then Chop to me kind of feels like that, to where we've heard a lot of different people talk about him and not in the best way, and where it's like, yeah, I'm going to stay away from Chop Robinson. And then Lukas, like, there was the conversation today that he had, and it didn't throw me like, I wasn't like, oh, wow, at all. And like, even if he draft or tests well, I'm not going to be like, oh, we need to go Chop. I'm kind of off of him, to be honest.
Really, just all defensive backs in general. That'll be one of the days that we're there. I think, like, kind of like the late round guys that we've all been mocking. I'm sure we'll keep an eye on those guys. And then, obviously, I'm super excited to see the quarterbacks throw. I can't wait to see JJ out there, but there's tons of guys, man. I'm super excited.
No, I don't trust with Gentry.
The quarterbacks and wide receivers together is going to be sick.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up. Malachi Corley, excited to see him. Keon, really excited to see him. Troy Franklin, I'm excited to see what his 40 time is.
Yeah,
then there's a couple like Jerzon Newton. I know like 40 time, that's not going to be the most thrilling thing to see, but you talk about in the shuttles, the bench press, because that's a guy that if Brad wants to move up and get, he's probably going to be there around mid-20s. And when you look back on this draft, I think he would be, why didn't he go in the top 15? So him, Ladd McConkey, TJ Tampa, there's a lot of guys because there's just so many ways that Brad can go with this draft. So it's going to be fun to analyze.
I want to see some corners. Corners. I can't wait to get there and watch some corners.
Well, you know what?
I think
we
get to see them, right?
Yeah.
Laughing at.
It's funny that speaking of a comment here, Detroit City had the Home Depot comment of me being in Home Depot to get bitches. Like, why Home Depot? I mean, what are we doing here? And no, I'm not. But like, even if someone Home Depot, man, I mean, maybe it's a sleeper spot. I don't know. I mean,
you never know, man.
Not single, so I don't know how that feels. But
those blue collar girls.
Yeah, blue collar. Dan Campbell, SCA.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell's looking for, huh?
Gritty.
Yeah, gritty.
Never late to work. On time. Clock out late. They'll do the dirty work. You don't want to take out the trash. That's fine. They'll do it for you. Head home. They'll clean up shop.
Jeff's looking for his own handyman.
No.
Needs a shelf put up.
No. Well, I do want to mention this before we get to mailbag in a couple minutes here. So get your questions ready. I do want to ask you guys because Scott brought this up, and honestly, it's a player that I didn't really think about, but I do think could benefit a lot from the combine, and that would be Roman Wilson. I think Roman Wilson could significantly benefit from this combine. I also think Jaden Daniels, he's not throwing, but he should. I don't know if he's throwing, actually.
I don't think so. I think JJ is the highest rated quarterback.
I got that right. I actually think he's missing out, to be honest. I think he's missing an opportunity to cement himself as a number 2 quarterback. Because him and Drake May, it's kind of that. I'm going to make a final decision here in a couple weeks. There's things that you could say about both, but for him, I feel like he missed an opportunity to go out there and just compete. And then you'd be like,
Yeah.
man,
I
think about
But the thing with Jaden Daniels on tape is he shows that he can make every throw, and he also has touch on the ball. And if he goes out there and wows the combine athletically, all right, now you know for a fact that you got 5-star tape and a 5-star combine athletically for a guy with an arm and with his legs. Drake May, there's question marks around him being as polished on both sides because you hear the mobility, but then you want to see how that translates to throwing on the run, et cetera, et cetera. If you can take that away and you just look at strictly tape, Drake May has really good tape. So if he goes out there and has an iffy combine, okay, well, now Jaden Daniels has really good tape and a really good combine.
So is Jaden Daniels just not
running.
Is Jaden Daniels just not throwing, or is he like what is his situation then? Because I'm a little bit with Jeff to where like right now it feels like Drake May is that second quarterback to go number 2, to where Jaden, like whoever that is, and maybe not, maybe the Commanders like Jaden Daniels. Like it feels like it's who's going to go to the Commanders and who's going to go to New England. That's where I feel like it's at right now. One of those two guys could solidify themselves as the number 2 overall pick if they just threw at the combine and they went out there and dominated. Like that's where I feel like Jeff's kind of going with it, to where you can kind of get into that second spot potentially and kind of take that over. I don't know though. I'm kind of on that, to where if he feels like he's not the second best quarterback looked at wise in this draft, maybe he should go out there and throw and just dominate real quick.
What if
Drake May.
What if he doesn't want to go to the Commanders?
Well,
that's true as well. That could be that could be.
Would you rather go to the Patriots though?
I just
got Terry McLaurin to New England.
I seen a tweet earlier. I don't know who it was from. I don't know how authentic it is, but it said that Bill Belichick was a big fan of Jaden Daniels, and that may or may not have been his pick. And who knows what Gerard Mayo thinks of him? But so I don't know.
Yeah, to your point, Gentry, I just read a report here. I wanted to clarify, fact check. Jaden Daniels met with the Patriots, and Jaden Daniels is working out his pro day. So there you go.
Oh, okay. So he's going to be throwing.
We're good. Hey, yeah, I don't know why.
The thing is, guys, with combine, at least with quarterbacks throwing, like, do you remember? Like, you remember 40 times. You remember some of the drills. Do you ever remember a quarterback's throwing performance that, like, wow, that really rose his draft stock?
Will Levis, but then he dropped.
But then, like, yeah, like you're throwing
he was out there
on
slinging
air.
it.
You're throwing on air. There's 0 defenders. There's 0 pass rush. Throwing out the combine is just really to see arm strength. You know, JJ has a strong arm. That's not what you're looking for, the touch. And you don't care about touch when there's nobody there, because the point of touch is getting it over a defender. If there's no defender there, who the hell cares? It's just to see who can throw the ball the farthest.
Anthony Richardson was a good one.
Jim Shorts doesn't translate to anything.
Hey, intangibles. I apparently.
Hey, wait, real quick. You talking about Jim Shorts? Cleveland Jim Shorts? Jim Shorts. That's my Jim. That's my Jim Shorts, man.
Real quick, backtrack for a second. You said Roman Wilson, excited to see. Remember what he did in the Senior Bowl? Like, no one really, like, he was obviously going to go to the NFL draft and get drafted. But then, like, when the Senior Bowl hit and he started making all those plays and kind of dominating, his draft stock just went drastically up after that Senior Bowl week. He's a guy, like, just like Scott said, like, if he does that again and kind of just shows out at the combine this week, I didn't even think about him being at the back half of the first round, but like he could get into the second, like he could solidify being a second round guy this weekend and like potentially get into that first round, like and passing a couple guys up, because what he's done, national championship to the Senior Bowl to now the combine, if he like continues to just build off that, he's someone, and he could be really good in the NFL too. I'm excited to see him actually. I think we'll see him Saturday, I believe.
Is he gonna run like a 4.4 or like a 4.5?
Probably like a 4.2.
You say a 4.2?
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Oh, bro, what?
Jeff.
Dude, why do you put these up? Take that
this
down.
This is unlike Jeff. Jeff usually doesn't do this.
Jeez.
Oh,
my family watches this show.
I'm crying, dude. Oh my god, that's bad. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, boys. I know you were like in a deep thought there.
Now we have to censor you putting up comments. Typically, Jeff's the one that's like, boys, don't like censor in the now we have to censor Jeff a little bit. Don't put the comments up.
It's unreal.
Yo.
Yeah, he was.
Hey. I thought it was funny. I thought that was funny, man.
I'm sure you did.
Jesus.
Detroit City, man. He's definitely
Mailbag, baby. Drop those questions.
All right, we'll start off. Steve and David. Mailbag. Lucas, can you clarify if your flag is upside down or not?
Oh my god!
I think you have mirror mode. I think it's mirror, right?
No, it's not.
It's right. It's just
field.
Look at the shot.
Jeez.
It's not upside down. Everyone always says it's upside down. It's not.
Okay. Is that just like real quick? Don't zoom out. Don't zoom in. Is that a mini couch or is that like just a really big chair?
No, it's a mini couch. I may or may have not found this like down the road and carried it into my garage one day.
That is the smallest couch of all time. That's not even a love seat.
I want to get a futon so I can just sleep out here.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I actually didn't know that, Lucas. I just got educated by what that flag was, so that's awesome.
Well, always a new day.
Hey,
yeah,
now you look good over there, by the way.
Oh man,
Bro.
Yeah, that Dwight one.
He's still thinking about the Dwight Howard comment.
Yeah,
He's
dude,
still
move on.
thinking about it.
Move on.
He's
He's
mesmerized.
gonna go look up Dwight Howard.
He's going to Reddit right after this for sure.
Yeah.
Mailbag. Can we get an NFC North hot take segment next week? Also excited to see what y'all think about these players after the combine. Man, Eduardo, we appreciate you. Hot take and NFC North hot takes. I mean, I guess we could do that.
Everyone bring 2 or 3.
And by the way, I want to say this: NFL Combine will be one of your best resources for information regarding the combine. We'll be having shorts, videos, update everything, live tweets.
We'll post 24/7 while we're there.
Yeah, make sure you're following all our social media platforms. If you're listening, it's at Official CT Pod because it'll be great. We'll have some fun out there. Maybe
I'd say turn our alerts on. Go on there, turn the alerts on. So every time we tweet out or we put a post up on Twitter, you guys will get the alert. Boom. I do that for all the big NFL guys, and I just have alerts coming through all day. Do that for us because we're going to be posting every couple minutes probably at the end at the combine, videos of guys running, plays being made, different things. I may or may not do a Kool-Aid video. I haven't decided yet, but I haven't drinking Kool-Aid in a long time, and I need to do it in the combine.
Do it like the beginning of somebody about to do their 40, so it's dead quiet.
Yeah, I might do a combine.
We're here, Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes in the building.
To be honest, I might walk around for 2 straight days with the Kool-Aid pitcher full until I see Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell.
You know who we gotta find, boys?
I see Brad Holmes,
find Rich Eisen. We got to find Rich Eisen, and when he does his 40 run, we track him down. Yep. We find him. We get the Rich Eisen, then we get the Booner tracker, then the Gentry tracker, the ball knower, the Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you guys, I think I might carry around a Kool-Aid pitcher full of Kool-Aid until we see Dan Campbell or Brad Holmes. That might be a thing. Once I see them, I'm doing one with them. That might be a thing.
Detroit Grit Mail Sack. Dwight McGlothern is going to be the biggest come up. Watch Dwight McGlothern. That's a hell of a last name.
I think that's the cornerback out of Arkansas that they're talking about.
I'm hearing good things about him. He's going to be like a what?
Jerry Jacobs, baby.
Yeah, mid round, but what? Jerry is that? Oh, Arkansas. Yeah, Jerry Jacobs, Hey, I like it. Let's see here. King Horace mailbag. So did the Meek Mill news ruin young Chris?
Yeah, what happened with Meek Mill? I didn't hear anything about that.
It's Dwight Howard-esque. It's Dwight Howard.
Can you talk about it after?
After the show.
I keep seeing people tweet at Meek Mill.
We can literally spend 10 minutes on it.
I listen to Meek Mill every couple days, so that's on you, Jeff.
What?
You changed up the vibe of the mailbag today. That was on you.
Stephen Dave. Yeah, Stephen David mailbag. Without saying Atlanta, where's the best fit for Justin Fields?
Steelers.
Vegas.
I would say Vegas. Yeah, Boone. Yeah.
Vegas is
I think the most likely is the Steelers, but maybe best fit because you have freaking
weapon.
Yeah, you got one of the best.
We had this argument a couple weeks ago, and I know Lucas was on Fields. I think the best fit is for Fields, but I think they go Russell Wilson. I think Vegas does, but I think for him it would be Vegas. I just think for Vegas it would be Russell Wilson.
Vegas is going to eat Russ alive.
ETN says mailbag. How crazy is it that Jared Goff was the Rams' last first-round pick? That is crazy, and they've still drafted talent. That's
Les Sneed
cooking.
Les
Sneed, man. Yeah, he's different. Anakin says mailbag. How cold is it where you guys are? What was it? What was it today?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh, it was 17.
Windy as hell.
Yeah.
Dude,
25 degrees where I'm at
my
right
car driving home today, I thought I was going to fly off the road. 2 hands on the wheel.
They're not knocking you off the Booner path.
Nope.
Oh, never. No. That's why 2 hands on the wheel. I'm good.
John Hughes says, Mailbag, if the Lions stand pat at 29, is cornerback or edge the pick based on our current information? I would say edge right
I'm
now.
going to say edge as well. Best player available is going to
edge.
be an edge.
At 29, do you guys think wide receiver or corner is more likely now?
Wide receiver.
Wide
I'm
receiver.
off
I
the
agree.
corner at 29.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm not
I'm
off on corner. I just depends on who's there. Like, you know,
I just think 2 ways they get corner is they trade up and go get someone like a Nate Wiggins and someone they really, really like, or 2, they trade back and they get a corner a little bit later. And that's
I think the only guy we're trading up for at the cornerback position in this draft is Terrion Arnold. That's the only guy I'd be willing to lose draft capital on, because I think he's the only like lock for sure that's going to work. I don't even know if he's a lock number 1, but he's a for sure going to pan out in the NFL.
Eric Hale on Mailbag. Red Wings at trade deadline. What do you see Yzerman possibly doing? Moving some players to bring up any young guys, or possibly a player in the league already? What positions?
I do think they look to add at least one more defenseman. I think I said that 2 days ago, like a more defensive defenseman, kind of pair up with Gostisbehere. If they do bring anyone up, it's only going to be Edvinsson, and I don't think you'll see that until the last 8 games, so they don't waste a contract year on him. But even with the way the defense is playing, as much as I want a guy like him up, I don't think it. I don't know. I don't think it will happen. And they might look for another forward. A guy that I would look out for is Frank Vetrano for the Ducks. He's got over 20 goals scored this year. People may ask, like, why do you need to add a lot of another forward? You have a bunch of guys scoring 10 goals right now. Maybe he just thinks there's another guy that can kind of put them over the edge and may deal off a contract that's expiring. But I do think a defenseman is 100% getting added. I know a couple months ago I was talking, kind of furthering this conversation with someone at the arena. And I know Tanev from the defenseman from Calgary, Chris Tanev, has been highly touted of, and they've reached out about him. But I do think a defenseman is coming for sure.
Yeah, I'm with Justin. Bring up Edvinsson. I'm excited for that. What's up, dude?
Yeah, I thought it was going to happen, earlier on in the year when they faced some struggles, but I think right now they might just look to kind of keep him under that contract year, and then maybe the last 8 games, if they think there's a need for it, if some guys get banged up, they do it. But at this point in time, the defense looks pretty stout, and a lot of the pairs have had past chemistry. They played together, or you got like studs like Jake Wallman and Sider that you don't ever want to split up just because of how well they've done. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird decision they'd have to make. Do you want to change that close to the playoffs when you're already doing that well, or what?
I read an article today I read an article on ESPN today that said a defenseman out of Ottawa they were going to look to trade for. Do you know who this is?
Chikrin or whatever.
Do you think that's a good move?
He's a really good player. He's had some attitude issues as far as past teams go. I think he will, and he's kind of been banged up a little bit. And I actually don't know the exact extent of like his years on his contract, so maybe that would kind of differ my opinion a little bit. But he's definitely a guy that they may look into. They actually, when he got traded from his past team, they were reaching out to acquire him at that time, and then he went to Ottawa. And obviously, Yzerman has a way with fleecing the Senators, so maybe he goes back for it. Wouldn't be a player I hate. I just don't know if he's like a long-term solution, how long he would stay and whatnot, but he's good for sure.
Not a Dan Campbell guy.
Brandon says, any special draft coverage this year? Yes, we will be downtown doing a show for the draft. And I saw a question too to answer this one. We'll have a live show on Friday. We're going to definitely plan for a live show. That'll be a lot of fun.
We're going to try and do something like a hotel room or something.
Yeah, at worst comes to worst, it'll be uploaded. We'll record it from 8 to 10 if we can't go live, and then we'll just re-upload it after. If there's any issues.
We'll do draft. We'll do draft.
We literally on Friday
where you guys get content.
On Friday, we literally will be at the combine. I think starting at 1 or 3 o'clock, one of the 2 times, and then as soon as the combine's over, I'm sure we'll go back to the hotel at 7 or 8, and I'm sure we'll probably get there a little early and get a set up in the room or something so we can go live. It'll look weird. It probably won't look like this because we're probably all will be in one camera shot talking. So it'll look a little different, but I think we're going to make sure we try and get live.
We should definitely try going to bars too, boys, because all those NFL execs, you never know when they could be lurking around, going to get a drink real quick. We can.
How else are we gonna have Booner get a beer?
We're
with Dan
networking.
Campbell.
If anyone here knows Dan Campbell, reach out, please, to us,
we'll
and
be
then we
there.
can connect. We'll connect.
Yeah, remember when Malik Willis took the shirt
Yeah,
he
what
had
was
and
that?
gave it to a homeless man, and someone saw him
Yeah.
at like a diner nearby or something, like a
Great
restaurant?
PR.
Everywhere we go, there's going to be NFL players and
Out
coaches
there
and
with
execs. So
LT.
we're gonna meet a lot of people, get a lot of numbers, get a lot. Booner,
Get a
nice
lot
to
of
meet
it.
you. To be honest, we might have someone on the show next week from the combine. So stay tuned.
All right.
Shout out. We need to end this because I need to hear what's going on with Meek.
Okay, well,
No,
we'll get out of here. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Shout out to this is a weird angle. Shout out to
I kind
Scott
of enjoy this.
Bischoff for joining the program. Of course, leave a 5-star review if you're listening via any podcast platform, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're only about 800-900 away from 4,000. So exciting.
Wait, no, Jeff, your math is really far off. We're about 80.
Excuse me. Yes. 80, 90, not 900. Yeah, that's my bad. I'm an idiot. All right, we'll get out of here. Thank you guys. Have a great night, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Love you guys.